Okay, it's about time to get started. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Been asked for the addition of public comments, and I'd like to add that right after the approval of the agenda.
And I have one other addition, Randy. I'd like for a discussion to reopen the phase one of the grants to the organizations that applied that were missing paperwork so they could submit the proper paperwork.
Okay.
Would that be under use of remaining funds?
Yeah, that would be down.
Well, I had been asked that we had
that. I would do that with the use of the remaining funds.
Yeah, 5A.
5A, but it'd be under the same subject.
Yeah.
It's now 6A.
Well, I had a request from some of the public to speak after we talked about that, so I don't know how you want to handle that.
Well, I think it goes, it's on the, we're putting it on the agenda, we're just putting it at 5. Is what
Okay,
Right at
that's
5.
fine,
Yeah.
just as long as it's addressed.
I think it was always at 5. The intent was to have it there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Can everybody hear? Okay,
They're saying no.
all right.
Okay.
Do you want me to address the deal about, we want to discuss the possibility of reopening phase one? Yes. Okay, you heard that. And I had been asked by some people if we could have the public comments after that discussion, but public discussion is going to be prior to it. All right? Then I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended,
As modified.
modified.
Second. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. 2A, public comment. And when you come up here, we need to get you a microphone. We'll have you on the video, but you'll need a microphone to make sure it gets recorded.
We just probably need to take it to them and just kind of have them stand in the front row or whatever.
I'll do that.
Way I'll get them on camera.
This one.
You have a microphone?
Just let me know.
Okay. You want me to take it after?
And if you would, state your name and organization you're with.
Just come around.
Okay.
You're fine right there. I think he just gives you the mic.
Is it okay if I grab the podium so that I can have that to set this on?
And we need you to kind of come to the middle.
Wherever you need. Do you want me in the camera view?
Like that camera over there, so it's hidden.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I need to go back. Let me just walk into what I need to do. Just move this stuff. Okay.
Good? Yep. All right. For the record, my name is Logan Day. I'm here representing the Ohio River Scenic Railway and an application that we had submitted for funding. Well, first of all, I appreciate you at least. I will speak louder. I appreciate you guys providing the opportunity for public comment. I'm Logan Day with the Ohio River Scenic Railway. I wanted to talk about some things as it relates to our application and the previous review and ultimate disqualification of it. I had the opportunity to print out the final rules from the recovery fund, and as much as I wish I had time to read every single word in here, I spent multiple hours going through and finding what I thought was pertinent. Ultimately, I hope that I'll be able to state the case here that we should be reconsidered and perhaps should have been considered primarily among some of those, without the disqualification that was received. So I just want to read some excerpts here, if you guys will bear with me. I wanted to provide a copy of this. I just didn't have the time to get it out to all of you. I will do one thing, though. If I can pass out, without dropping everything, some documentation here for the board members, committee members. Yeah, that'd be great. Just pass that out. All right, so what you all are receiving is a document that kind of shows some of the impact that our organization has had since we started. So we actually we started as far back as 2018 formulating this and working with locals here to put this train together. 2019 is when we formed the business, just prior to the pandemic, and started sales, and then the pandemic hit. And that was a rather tumultuous time for us to try and navigate. But that document in front of you will show you that we had, it's out of date even up to now because we have more passengers, but we've had about 17,000 people visit the train since we started in June of 2020. 93% of those have been outside of, that should actually say Perry County, not just Tell City, but 93% outside of Perry County. We currently employ 13 individuals. We've had 25 different relationships cultivated with local vendors, restaurants, and things like that we've helped to prop up through our operations throughout the pandemic as well. I know notably, any of you could talk to Ryan Warner at Poorhouse, and he will sing the praises of how many people came in that he knew were from the train, because they came in groups, or from Christmas they came in their pajamas, and it was just very obvious the impact that we had. And I think he was quoted as saying that he may not have made it through the pandemic had it not been for the business that we brought them. But anyway, that's a little bit about this, some of what our impact has been. But going to the final rule here, I'm going to do as best as I can to kind of paraphrase and jump through this. But in page 5 of the summary, it just talks about the final rules being here to expand, it provides an expanded set of households and communities that are presumed to be impacted or disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, thereby allowing recipients, which would be you all, to provide responses to a broad set of households and entities without requiring additional analysis. Going on to page 6, the final rule presumes that some populations and groups were impacted or disproportionately impacted and are eligible for responsive services. On page 12, says the responses should be related and reasonably proportional to the harm that was identified and reasonably designed to benefit that harm. All right. Try to jump in here. I'm trying to save you guys time because I could go on for 2 hours here, and I'm trying to keep it at like 2 minutes, and that's not going to happen either. On page 21, it talks about specifically assistance to small businesses, and that this funding is supposed to include periods of shutdown, declines in revenue, or increased costs. So I know specifically after speaking with some of you that we were declined because of gross revenue. We did manage to grow the number of riders from 2020 to 21. So if you look at just ticket sales revenue, it grew. For the public's benefit, I will share this. We also had a loss of $229,000 that year, trying to keep that business functional. So while our revenue increased, our cost increased proportionally, if not exponentially, to try and sustain that. So if you go into the actual final rule, well actually I'll go to page 25 here, and this is where I think it's particularly important. It talks about aid to impacted industries. So number 1 says that if an industry is in the travel, tourism, or hospitality sector, it is impacted, period. And then it has a whole list of other things that you could use to describe whether another industry might be impacted. But if you actually go into the final rule, I found this particularly interesting. Part D, page 4381, it says, the Treasury specified that recipients should consider the extent of the economic impact as compared to the tourism, travel, and hospitality industry. We're used as the measuring stick for how impacted any other industry was. Again, I could go on and on and on in here. There's portions where it talks about revenues or profits, and that's where I would argue on page 4383, it says examples of eligible responses would include aid to mitigate financial hardship due to declines in revenue or profits, specifically in our industry. And it goes on to talk about how eligible uses of that funds could be for anything to maintain operations even as the status quo. Not necessarily things that were related directly to COVID, but maintaining the model of operation that you had before. I use all that to say that, and with the public behind me, I know there are a lot of other businesses that were impacted by this pandemic. But I cannot begin to describe to you what the turmoil, the challenge, the fight that it has taken to keep this business alive. We've never known what normal was. We don't know what 2019 and before looked like. But the time that I myself, my business partners, my employees have had to spend away from their families to try and keep this going, to try and keep our business afloat. And time again, we've been smacked in the face. The federal government, every one of those grant programs that came out, we narrowly missed it because we weren't in existence soon enough. Because our gross revenue increased. We continued to hold out hope, talking to community leaders, that when this ARP money came through, that was going to be our salvation. And here we are again, looking at gross revenue kicking us out. Yes, we had profound losses. No, the money that we asked for, which was probably more than any other recipient, and we did indicate that anything less than that would be helpful. So whatever you would see in your decisions to try and put forward, if you would be willing to consider us again, would be helpful. But we have weathered and sustained this storm since day one without ever having a normal day, week, or year of operation. I'm not asking to become a government-subsidized business. I don't want to be that. I just want to see that the money that flowed down from the federal government that was supposed to overcome some of the challenges that businesses had in getting other funding could come to a business that needs it more than any other. Not more than any other, but needs it a lot. Our existence hangs in the balance, and we've done a lot of good in this community, but I cannot tell you how hard it is to be Conductor Logan with a smile on my face, escorting these kids and these families on and off this train, talking about this county, not knowing if we're going to see another day. I want to be here for you guys. Our train wants to be here for you guys. But we need you guys to step out and make the commitment, make the sacrifice that's within your means to make this possible for us. We want to have a future here. We need your help. Please, please reconsider our application immediately and try to get us through on this grant round. Thank you.
I think Brenda was the next person.
They're the same entity. You don't want to listen to the same entity at the same time? Or the person that just stood up, were you going to the podium and you said right there?
No, you picked up something. Go ahead, Rob. No.
May I do a follow-up? I'm with the train as well, or if not, I mean, I can do it later.
Time.
Well, this really isn't a public comment meeting. We have like 4 people that we have questions on to see whether they're going to get funded through this year. And then we're going to entertain a discussion on where we're going. We've had it changed into some new
How's it not a
parameters.
public comment meeting?
Pardon me?
Public meeting. With all due respect, we have a lot of people here who are not leaving until they're able to voice their opinion and get some answers. If you are having a public meeting, you need to have public comment.
We are having public comment, but it is not a public meeting for discussion or action. Actions have been taken. A set of rules have been drawn up, and now some people did not get funded.
I don't, almost
Okay.
all, I don't need that.
Okay. We had parameters, okay, and then they weren't met. We have to come in and say, this is what the group decided, carry forward, and we're not changing the rules in the middle of the game.
But
Now,
that's what you did.
in your opinion, we did. We're trying to hold true to it. Maybe we failed in this. We're an advisory board. In your opinion, maybe we failed. We're trying to follow not only the rules provided by the federal government, but also to be fair to all those people that applied. Some of them, if we start changing them now, where do we stop? If you'll you'll notice on the bottom of our agenda, we have a discussion as to where we're going forward from here. We have not made any decisions. We have additional funding available to us. This is an open discussion that we're going to have. We're not having it behind closed doors. There's not emails floating around, I want to do this, I want to do that. It'll be in public. But for us to sit here and say, we're going to change it so this group applies, then the next group comes in and says, well, I didn't even apply because I didn't know you were going to allow this. Then they want to apply. So then we say, okay, you can apply. We have a never-ending application process with little or no rules that we're going to follow. So we have to let this process carry through, have a determined end to it, and then decide going forward what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But that's where we are tonight, just to deal with these others. Logan asked me to put it on the agenda. I have a public comment. I have no problem with public comment. But we're going to be here half the night if 50 people need to speak, when our only task is to address this agenda and have an open discussion on where we're going from here and what kind of rules we've got.
I work for building blocks. And there was a lot of conversation about us without our presence, so I would absolutely love to clarify some of the things that were said about myself and my agency via this board. So I would love to address that.
And if we decide we're going to reopen in some
I
fashion.
don't care about funding. What I care about is clarifying the erroneous statements that were made so that the community that I live in knows that my agency supports every single one of them and how. Because what was projected was that we were an entity in Evansville that doesn't really have anything to do with Perry County. That's not an accurate information. I am not some entity in Evansville. I live here. Lacey is my kids' cheer coach. She helped me open my business here. I am a community member that tries to help other community members. And so I think it's important for you to understand, I'm not here because we need $75,000. I'm here because inaccurate information is why people who need services don't get them. So I'd like to clarify how my community accesses
I think that would be wonderful, and probably the best thing to do is for you to write an article that would be published not only in the paper, put on different websites, and share it with us. Because
So getting clarification from my agency when your denial was based on erroneous information is not something that you want to address.
What erroneous information was it based on? Could you help us out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who's got?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we've got to go in order. Brenda was after Logan. We'll get to you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm here representing the Tell City American Legion Auxiliary. I am Brenda Poole, and I am the president, and I have been for the last 4 years. Working through COVID has not been the easiest thing to keep our ground solid and our membership growing. We file our taxes. That is the only thing I want to address, is that we do file our taxes. Looking at the forms, you'll find that only half of the year of 2021, because tax year for the auxiliary and the state of Indiana, American Legion Auxiliary, runs fiscal year from July 1 to the following year to June 30. So I'm understanding that we rejected because of a half a year. So what I've done is put together P&L statements for each year, and I'm trying to put one together for that half a year, and I'm hoping that will help sway your decision on our financing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I will tell you that, sure.
So I work for Building Blocks, and
And your name, please?
Laura Taylor. And so I want to, before I start, let you know that I don't plan to address the direct allegations that were made against my organization because I work for an organization. And asking me to address what was said by Ms. Emerson would be like asking the treasurer to address allegations that were made against the judge, right? We have different positions. And so my position is different than what Ms. Emerson was referring to. I do work for Building Blocks. My part of the contribution to the community is that Building Blocks provides holistic support for families. So what that means is, yes, we are a early learning agency. Building Blocks changed its name because it was 4C before. 4C stood for Coordinated Child Care. We are no longer a coordinated child care agency. What we are is an agency that supports the community wholly. Some of the things that I have been doing in your community, in my community, with my friends, with people who I know, is I teach parenting classes for free. These are available virtually, in person at the Shergan Center. Your mayor was kind enough to give us that entire building on Wednesday so that I could teach parenting classes. The importance of that is that I teach people who have typically a history of incarceration or have ever been justice involved. Now, I'm not specifically for just people who have involvement in the criminal justice system, but those are the people that I target, because Indiana is number 2 in the entire nation for child abuse cases. And you can't focus on early learning if your child is trying to focus on being safe. How do we keep kids safe? We make sure that their parents are safe people. So that is what I do for Building Blocks. The database that I created is in use in other places and has been proven quite successful. It was created because folks who have limited income and access to community supports also have limited access to people that can help them. If you have never been someone who has been poor, you don't understand the struggles of trying to get help, which means you drive from Derby to town to try to find an agency to help you. Now, if you've had a felony, that's even more difficult. And frankly, a lot of those folks don't know how to access those services. What I proposed to you was a centralized intake that would allow all of our community members to have access to services that they can use. So I'm not here to solicit money. I am not here to ask you for $75,000. Though I do want to point out that when I asked for $75,000, I brought $228,000 of revenue into Perry County in addition to your $75,000. That came from other folks who said this is worthwhile. So I asked for a small amount. Frankly, the parenting classes that we teach are not funded for Perry County. I teach them because I live here. Because those kids that need help are the kids that are sitting in my kids' class. That's why we are here. So when you say things like they don't do anything to help the community, I want you to know that I can't speak for what she was referring to, but I can speak for the passion that I have and my agency has for people who are in your position, who can sit at a board and make decisions about grants, and for people who are directly affected by who gets those grants. Those are the people that I advocate for. So, thank you for allowing me to clarify. I know in the last meeting there were flyers, so I brought my own. There is a new parenting class started. It encourages adults to parent and practice self-regulatory skills. I encourage you to participate because it helps far beyond parenting. I'll leave those here for you.
Any other comments?
Dan Hayden, I'm Camp from American Legion. I would like to know, we submitted an application. I've heard nothing from anybody as to why we were declined. I would like to know why, and if I can fix it for maybe a possible another round, I would like to do that. But I need to know what is the problem with my application. And I don't want to bring it in front of everybody because I don't want to be embarrassed if they get with me later.
And what it is, Greg's gonna look real quick here.
Okay.
Find out what it was.
Fine.
And
No, I'll come to you and tell you.
That's good. Thank you.
this is,
An email should have been sent. I'm gonna see.
Well-
I'll see who I sent it
Whoever
to.
the contact was on the application.
It was on there,
received
but
it.
we never got it.
Okay.
It would come directly to me.
we
Never
sent those to that, but he's got that. But
Okay.
this again is the subject we're going to discuss
Okay.
after we get through these four groups.
There are several of us here like that who would like to know what was wrong.
We need to, that's not a problem,
Okay.
but we need to decide what we're going to do going forward now.
Thank you.
But that's where we're at.
Thank you very much.
It was sent to legionamerican@psci.net. That was the contact given on the application. Yeah, but that's who was given to you on the application. That was the
We do not even have that. That's not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, oh, good, I thought it was going on the screen. No, it's all right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I can do it in this one, right?
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Katie Papano, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the train as well. And I'm a member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And when 2020 hit and everything got locked down, we thought to ourselves, oh my God, we're never going to, have any, nobody's going to come. The hotels will be empty. We fired, let go some of our staff and everything because we thought we're not going to have revenue. We live off, our organization lives off the bed tax. We thought we won't have the revenue to pay their salaries. And that's not what happened. Because of the train, which only ran for half a year because of the lockdown, we had a higher bed tax year than we had in previous years. And that was only due to the train because it brought in the 10,000 people that he was talking about per year. They came from out of county, and although a lot of them were reasonably local, like Louisville, Owensboro, and Evansville, we had 28 states represented. And people really were coming from, Chicago and Florida and Denver, not Denver, Delaware. We had it wasn't just because they were coming here to visit relatives and then they got, to ride a train. They actually came to ride the train. And I want you to think about our future when you think about this train, because if we have, a downtown hotel that we're trying to get, who do you think is going to fill it? It's going to be this train. And the fact that we didn't have a single restaurant other than Carrie Gin go out during the pandemic really is due to this train. We brought the people in who ate at their restaurants. We had the restaurants catering on our train. And people will tell you that own the restaurants that we were a big help to them during a very trying time for them. And I got interested in trains when I went to Williams, Arizona, and this is in 1996. And they had just started their train, and they did it because their town was on the old Route 66, and they were about to be bypassed by an interstate. And they thought, we've got to do something, let's have a train. And they had some very wealthy people there that put together the money to do it. And they had 3 hotels at that time. 5 years later, I went back, and they were up to 11 hotels. 5 years after that, I went back, and they had started probably one of the first Polar Express rides, and they were up to 39 hotels. Today, they're up to 47. And the town has not changed inside. They simply put a crowd through it, like Holiday World does. That's what this train would do for us. It would be our Holiday World. It would get the people, the volume that would support the hotels and the restaurants and the shops and gas stations. Things you don't even think about. CNS provides the fuel for the train. There are a lot of businesses tied into them. And they're in a difficult situation because they started up in 2020. And lots of businesses have received help, but all the money given out for relief was for businesses that were in existence in 2019, and they weren't. So they have not qualified for anything until this pot of money. And I really hope you'll give them some consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Lacey Jones with the United Way of Perry County. I'm the executive director. I realize I'm not on the agenda, and I apologize for that, but I did reach out and receive no response. So I just want to clarify a few things. I have given you guys a copy of this so you can look over it so that I don't take...
Who'd you reach out to?
I believe it was Greg that sent the email that said I was denied for not having proper information. He emailed me at like 6:30 on Friday morning. I emailed back at 8:01 that Friday morning. Still haven't heard back as to why we were denied funding or what documents I was missing. Now, I did watch back the 3-hour YouTube video and tried to decipher... Pull it back. Oh, sorry. Tried to decipher which number I was and which time you were talking about United Way of Perry County. But as many people in this room that went back and rewatched that, it was very hard.
I apologize.
That's okay, and I'm not trying to...
No, but I want to say, when you replied, I thought you replied to all of us, but you just replied to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it only came from...
more attention and forwarded it on that. I just want to apologize.
Yes, thank you. So I don't want to take up too much time because some of the things I want to address sounds like we can address later. I do just want to say I've handled many grant applications in my role with United Way and with my role with the Perry County Memorial Hospital Foundation. I've never been a part of anything where if somebody was missing information, we didn't reach out and say, hey, and I realize now it was probably my 2021 profit loss because I did upload my 18, 19, 29, 90s, but we hadn't done our 2021 yet. So yes, we take responsibility for that, but what I would like to say is if United Way of Perry County, one of the larger, if not largest nonprofits in Perry County, didn't get that right and was denied, then I know all the nonprofits that I stand up for every single day didn't get that right. That is not okay. I take pride in my work. My board takes pride in our work. During the pandemic, we served so many people. Yes, we got a $175,000 grant from Lilly, but guess how much of that stayed with the United Way of Perry County? Well, let's see. I put it in here for you, $23,750. I even broke it down to we funded county organizations that couldn't get funded by the county, such as the coroner's office. We gave them 2 grants for body bags and PPEs because they couldn't get it from the county. We funded the sheriff's department for things that they needed that they couldn't get. We purchased laptops for the probation office so they could properly work from home during the pandemic. So not only did we serve nonprofits and small businesses, but we also helped our county that wasn't our responsibility. We didn't have to do that, but we found a way to make that work. One thing I do want to say is, even though we were not able to fund all applicants, we weren't, and we will be the first to admit we had to turn people away. But you know what I did? I didn't just say, sorry, you didn't have what you needed, you're done. We reached out to them and said, hey, I'm so sorry, we cannot fund you, but what I can do is introduce you to, I'm just throwing this out there, Erin Emerson. She runs Perry Child Care, and she might be able to hook you up with some other grants that you can apply for. We went out of our way, and I know that that's time consuming. I know that that is not what people sign up for when they are on a committee, but isn't that what Pick Perry means? Like, aren't we supposed to reach down and help the little guy? In conclusion, none of us chose this pandemic. None of us chose to work from home. None of us chose to be teachers to our children when school was out of session. None of us chose to close our doors to customers. None of us chose to have increased mental health issues. I'll be the first to admit who in this room didn't have increased mental health issues? And none of us chose to lose profit. But the one thing we did all choose is Perry County. Excuse me? We all chose Perry County. We stay in Perry County to serve Perry County. So, I truly hope that you will consider the sincerity of this letter I've provided, and you will read it and not just set it to the side because I was denied, and that you will choose to pick Perry back. That's all I'm asking. To invest in the community and the people in it that held our community together during the most difficult time some of us have ever went through. Who held it together? The people in this room, the nonprofits, the small businesses. Those are the people that held it together. So all I'm asking is that you choose them and give them another chance. And I understand we might be discussing that later, but I just felt it important to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall we continue?
Come on up, have a shot at us. We're nothing but a committee of advisory people who's trying to follow the federal regulations. But if railroads denied by the regulations, the federal government, they put them on us and we turn into the bad guys. Because if we don't follow them, then the county can be held liable. And anybody we dispense funds to can also have a clawback. And we can all end up in a problem. So it's a little, we are trying to do the best and we're trying to follow the rules. It seems like we're the target now. We're not the target. We're trying to follow the rules, put these to work in the community. We do have rules we have to follow. We don't make the rules. We just try to follow. Sorry.
No one said that people who weren't funded wouldn't be funded later. And I'm just going to say it, I know we shouldn't be speaking now, but I, for one, do not appreciate being attacked. I have spent hours and hours and hours. Everyone who applied ended up getting funded. Everyone, half the people could. No one might. But there were parameters that were set for this round, and we followed them so we could be fair to everyone. And then no one even gave us a chance. This is our first meeting since we did it to say, hey, we're going to go back and reconsider this or consider that. But before I'm attacked, I'd like to be given a chance.
I completely agree. I could not agree more.
So I'm just saying I don't appreciate being attacked and being told that we don't support the community and we don't support Perry County. By sitting on this committee to support it, we may each in our mind have the thought that we want to go back and do everything that you all said, but you haven't given us a chance to say that yet.
I think it's how it was handled because nobody was really given it the information of what they were missing or what. And some of the comments, I watched the entire thing too. There were rude comments out there. There were rude comments. If you don't know something about an organization, ask them before you speak about it.
And we actually, and I shouldn't be doing this in the middle of the meeting, we set up, you look back at one of our earlier meetings, Fred made the suggestion that all questions should be addressed through a single source. That single source should respond by emails with the remainder of us copied so that there's no misinformation put out and we can fully inform. There was a 6-week period allocated from the beginning to the end. I, for one, if I received 1 or 2, that would be it. I received little or no carbon copies on any questions. Now, if there was, I was unaware of it. If we would have received substantial emails in response, then this board could have considered, wait a minute, maybe there's something that's causing a problem here. And then address it. Reach out to the people. But when we're uninformed, we feel like the group in general understands it, will be in compliance, and there will not be an issue.
Yeah, the number of emails I've got is 5 or less probably during that time period.
I will make a comment.
Chair commented there before at the beginning of the meeting to please consider that these are not grant riders, that she and Emily Davis, Albie, had fielded over 30 phone calls about confusion and to consider that upon judging those
We
grants.
didn't get those comments.
And if you want to review our document, they're recorded, where Greg specifically said, one person needs to handle them, it was
But your
Carol.
email doesn't work. I've had so many people say that the email does not work on the county's website.
Yeah, it should have went, she's not a county employee, correct? She's-
The
Emily,
info
No,
that-
Emily answers them first. If it's something that
I'm
she
talking about
cannot answer them, then Tara was to handle them and include the group so that we had.
But your group email doesn't work.
It's not our group. We all had our private ones in here because there was.
It's on your website.
We had, it was not for Wendy, you to contact me or to contact Tom. It was to go to Emily, then it was to go to Tara where it was shared among the group to make sure that the correct answer was shared with whoever asked the question. Now, we had little or no email communications, and it would have been through our private emails, not the county emails. So we didn't receive anything, so we had no knowledge that there was a big problem out here with an application or misunderstanding. They didn't understand what a 2021 document was or a 2018, 2019, whatever that is. We were unaware of that until we opened the applications up and found a lot of things missing. And then we're sitting here in a situation where the documents aren't provided that we asked for. That's one of the parameters. We said, here's the only way we can make a decision is if the documents are provided. So we look at them, they're not there. We can't sit down here under the federal guidelines and make assumptions. That creates us a problem. Now, somewhere along here, if there was a lot of people, if there was 30 people, they did not get shared with this board, or at least me.
Just the last meeting, if I can make a comment. I mean, if you look at the last meeting where we're going through these, and we deny and we deny and we deny, we know that. As a group, we know that happened. We understand it. I was just as disheartened, and I'm pretty sure the rest of the group was just as disheartened by doing it. Some of these things that we turned down are near and dear to my heart. I grew up with them. They were organizations that my family grew up with. So it's not something that was easy for us to do. But we followed the rule set that we had. Now coming in here, in my mindset, and I'm going to speak out of turn, I'm sorry if I am, but in my mindset, when we got to number 5, it was going to be, how can we fix the mistakes that we made? Not that you made, not that anyone out there made, but that maybe we made, in the sense of not making it easy enough or something like that. But we're learning. This is our first time at this too. We're not application writers. We're not grant writers either. So if we made mistakes, okay, we'll go on. And we'll actually try to figure out, hey, how do we rework it to where we actually can fix those? And most of it really isn't the application itself. Most of it isn't what you guys did. It's probably just miscommunication. How many times has that happened in your life? How many times have you walked down the hallway and told your kid one thing and they go off and do another? I'm the kid, you're the kid, we all hear something and we do something different with it. Tonight, I would like communication not to be finger pointing, because finger pointing doesn't help either direction. But if we can communicate, if we can talk, if we can figure out what went wrong and figure out solutions to those things, that's what I'm here for. I hope that's what you're here for.
Would it be good to leave with that? Probably not have heard all of that.
You got a veteran up there trying to speak. You should have the floor. He's got the mic now. If other people want to speak, let him waste your time. He's not in the best shape.
Sorry, sir.
You're fine. Thank you. And I appreciate all the comments. First, right off the bat, if anybody wants I'm sorry, I apologize. Yep. Already messing up again. Gerald Davis with the VFW down here on the corner down here at the end of Main Street and everything. And I want to invite everybody this coming Sunday, if you like pork chops and chicken, come on down. We'll have plenty of creek fries, green beans, everything, and it'll be a lot of good cooking. I was here at the last meeting and everything, and I asked, my situations or my mistakes and everything, and I went back and had a conversation. First, I was very ill, but then all of a sudden I thought we all make mistakes, so you all gave me, told me what I did wrong, and I would appreciate it. And don't forget the other American Legion or the veterans and everything to give all these people and give everybody a second chance if you can. Everything. I appreciate you telling me what was wrong. That's been corrected, and I'm ready to challenge you all again to see if this one's right again. If it don't, then no, it's not the end of the world. But believe you me, we're still going to have plenty of chicken and pork chops for you. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Okay.
We've had a lot of comments, and maybe I've heard it or not, but like Greg said, we started down this process. One of the things we'll point out, we did not give the money away. It's still there.
Yes.
The process that we went through, that was, in my opinion, was just the first step. I didn't, I'm not going to point fingers either. I didn't agree with some of the disqualification like others did on this, but in my opinion, we can still fix this. We didn't give the money away. Now, inappropriate comments, I mean, I don't know, I can't recall it.
It's an hour, 30 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, I apologize if I made one. And I don't mean to discredit that, but if I made one, I didn't. Every project that, in every application, had merit. I mean, it really did. And I'm like Greg, it broke my heart that they weren't all funded, but during the whole time, I was thinking we're gonna have a step 2. Whether it's phase 2 or it's calling for or whatever the group agrees to, I'm hoping that we give the chance for people to correct. Now, part of the problem was the answer to emails with problems. Well, hopefully we can fix that. You know what I mean? We just and like I said, if somebody's offended, I'm sorry for that. I don't know that it was intended. I know I never intended on any comment to be personal or undermine any of the efforts that anyone who applied is making. I mean, so, and the ones that I abstained from, I thought heck over them, but I felt
gotta do what's right,
that I abstained from.
You got to do what's right, though.
There's one other thing that I thought might have been confusing for folks as well. This grant specifically, and it wasn't listed in the beginning, but there have been several rulings and final rulings, and one of the things was it was supposed to be money that was lost from March 2020 going forward, and a lot of people, I'm sorry, March 2021 going forward, and a lot of people had a significant loss in 2020 when the pandemic was there, first started, but then maybe not so much in 2021, and so we would love to have gone back and tried to make up for that, but we have to follow the rules that were set forth by the federal government with the money to keep the county out of trouble, and so the loss had to be shown from March 2021 forward, and so that's where we were with that. And again, I agree with what Tom said. If I made any comments that offended anyone, I certainly apologize. These projects were amazing that were submitted, and some of them I nearly cried on when I had to say, wow, they didn't show a loss for 2021, because they're near and dear to my heart too, and I'm sure that's for everyone on this. We're all Perry County people.
Yeah. But even since the meeting, we had the conference call with the attorney with the Indiana Association of County Commissioners that explained some of these final rules. And that's one of the reasons I don't mean to jump up ahead on the agenda, but we talk about the up to $10 million revenue loss, and the commissioners have voted to consider all of it to that lost revenue, and that makes it a lot cleaner and easier for the money to be distributed out.
It makes it more flexible. is the
Flexible,
right word.
yes.
I lost my word when I was saying
All
that.
of the rules don't necessarily have to apply to each individual applicant, and we got that clarified by
But I think
the
we're
attorney.
We're getting ahead of
I think we're
ourselves.
getting
If we could get through, because
I'm sorry.
Let's get through three,
Get through these,
and
we've got
so
a
we
list
can
of
get
this
to the,
discussion.
Yes.
I mean,
the
so-
subject at hand. Okay, Randy?
Knights of Columbus. Sherry, did you have that one?
I do have
Ryan's
that
here.
one.
Ryan's
I believe
here.
that Ryan's here as well.
Are you going to speak to us, Ryan? You can, that'd be great.
I forwarded Ryan's answers to all the questions,
Yes.
which I thought he answered very thoroughly. And I guess what I'm hoping at this point, since I was asked to review this one, is that you all have read Ryan's answers, and if you have any further questions for him, you can answer.
So, Ryan, I know you've explained it, the group's here now.
Sure.
What are you going to do with the money?
Yeah, so our money, we have a building fund that we've started once we sold our building. We have an objective to raise, I believe, $225,000 to essentially purchase and then renovate a new building, either purchase or arrange some sort of long-term lease. So we've been in search of buildings. We've had a couple on the line that have fallen through. And so what we're in the process of now is identifying that location and raising funds to help pay for it. So we've also had our own campaign where we've raised our own funds so far of north of $13,000 to go along with the money that we used to, or that we obtained when we sold the building.
And how are you going to serve the Perry County community?
The biggest way we serve is obviously we fundraise. So we fundraise. And we do that a lot through our cooks and through our larger events. We just hosted our steak dinner about 3 weeks ago. Almost all of the money raised from that steak dinner went to the Tell City Police Department to serve their new youth camp that they're doing. So basically, we identify different charitable organizations throughout the year. They approach us, whether it's after proms, the Tell City Police Department, the Special Olympics. We've got a host of charities that we support, the local food banks throughout the year. And the majority of our money is raised basically through cooking and serving the community. Historically, we would do that out of our building. And during the pandemic, we unfortunately had to close that building, and we're in the process of looking for a new one.
And the funds you receive from selling the property are in reserve?
They're in a reserve. Yep, they're in a. We keep it in a separate account from our other funds that come in. That's where we also put any fundraising dollars that we've collected through letter writing and through all of our members. So. We try to make sure that the majority of our fundraising dollars that come in go back out through the community through various requests that come in to our monthly meetings. Any of the fundraising we've done for the building goes to a separate account so that we're raising funds and keeping that separate from our fundraising and charitable activities.
I just have one further question.
Sure.
The money that you received from the sale of the building, you had already said was in a reserve account.
Correct.
Someone approached me and told me that whoever represented the KFC at the city ARP meeting had said that the money was sent to the archdiocese and not in a building fund. Can you tell me which is correct?
No, it's in a building fund. Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
And I have one, and it's basically to the board, because we disallowed several groups, and Ryan, no disrespect.
Sure.
By selling that building, was that a significant gain in income? Because we ruled some applications were thrown out because they had gained.
it's not listed as their I'm gonna answer what.
Well,
the way I
I'm
read it.
asking the board, because I wanted it to be level across the
It
board.
wasn't listed as their income because it's in reserve for a place to be. And I don't know how everyone else did their input, but
Well-
the way I looked at it, it was they did the responsible thing in that they could not maintain the building. And so instead of going bankrupt, they sold it to put it in a fund to get
Okay.
a new building. So
But-
it was not listed on their
Right,
income if you
but-
look at the financials.
But there were organizations disallowed because of an increase of profit. Pardon?
No one sold it.
No, but I mean,
They
they,
had an increase in money that came into their organization.
okay.
It was just a capital.
I want this brought out so there's no questions later on if an organization says, we were denied because we had an increase, what about this?
Yeah,
That's the reason the discussion.
Yeah, just from an accounting standpoint, for us, it's a balance sheet swap, right? We had an asset, and now we have cash pending, enough cash to buy a new asset, so.
Yeah, I don't get to vote on these, but the way that because I abstained from them, but the way I saw it was as a capital gains.
Yeah.
Basically, it's neither a loss or a gain either way, and capital gains is probably the wrong word, but it's just a transfer from
Sure.
one fund to another.
And like I said, I just wanted this addressed for future reference if that's brought up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I chime in for a second?
Yeah, Tara.
We had an application guide that didn't have any of that criteria listed in it, and it probably should have been in there. If that's, some of the criteria that you're talking about, like gains and all
Right,
this.
we had talked about some groups that had applied
Right.
had a gain and they were ruled ineligible.
Right.
And then they sold the building, and my question was that?
That's an accounting rule.
But we didn't
That's
ask-
not,
We
that,
didn't ask for anybody's assets.
if you,
Right, that's right, because that was a question that was brought up earlier. I stand
It
corrected.
would have been the same on everyone, but we would have had to ask for their assets.
Right, we decided to,
as far as I'm not a CPA, so grain of salt here, but my understanding is when you have an asset that's in a line item fund, it is a value to your net worth. And when I sell that and get capital gains and I put it in another fund for holdings, if you gained, you probably lost.
Right.
But either way,
Value of the building.
all you're doing is you're shifting it from one fund to one fund. It's not revenue at that point.
Okay.
That is correct. It is not revenue, and if it were included in that, they probably would have had an even greater loss.
Yeah.
okay. Well, I just wanted to address the issue so it's out in public.
That's an accounting thing. That's
All right.
not necessarily. No.
No, I agree. Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do I have a motion one way or the other concerning KSC funding?
I'd like to make a motion that, well, never mind, I have to find my notes first, someone else can do it.
Greg, do you have the amount that we had earmarked for that?
I can pull it up. I don't have it right now.
25K.
25. I thought that's what,
25 is what?
yes.
I apologize. I should have been ready.
I'll make the motion, we approve the $25,000 to the KSC pending, this is just advisory committee, pending the approval and legalities and our contract that we're going to have to get created, that they will have to sign. Jumping through all those hoops.
Do they actually show that in loss? Is there that much in loss?
Yes,
Then
Yeah, they shut down.
Yeah,
they showed more than that in that.
Okay.
And I'm asking that because of the contract.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll
Pending
second-
those things and getting those approvals.
I'll second the motion.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It carried. Greg, you did not,
Abstained.
he abstained. The next one is the Perry County Chamber of Commerce.
All right, I reached out to Wendy, she sent me an email, I printed it off. Because of this lighting, I cannot read it, so I'm going to ask the president if he will address that. I'm sorry, I printed it out in such small print that I can't even read it. Okay. think the two questions that I had sent her was, the first one, on the application, there was something listed as other, and we had a concern about that. And
About other?
other.
It was about losses, is that what you're saying?
No, in your budget, in your budget for what you wanted to do with the money, there was a category called other.
And I put,
25 grand.
so just, I'm Wendy Rich. I'm the Executive Director of the Perry County Chamber of Commerce, and I am speaking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and its board, and part of the board sits here today with me. I'm willing to listen to the questions that you have about what other is. You're funding lost revenue, is that what you're funding?
No, it was just
No?
a line item in the budget.
Right, it was a line
Right,
item. We didn't
lost
know what
revenue.
other meant.
With the money.
Yeah.
Oh, sustain.
Yeah.
We'll continue.
Understand that you put other, and we're asking
What you were gonna
what
use-
is other?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
you were going to use it for.
Just to continue and sustain to recover from COVID-19 and lack of funding due to COVID-19. I have a lot to go over. Do you want me to talk about my application? Or do you have any other questions?
No, I think the sustainability.
Sustainability, actually, if you look in the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds overview of the final rule is produced by the U.S. Department of Treasury dated January 2022. I think that is the final rule in which you refer to in this meeting, in the previous meetings, correct?
That's the abbreviation.
This is the summary.
Yeah, that's
Right. This, I stated that it was the overview of the final rule. I know that a lot of the members that were denied and a lot of people in the nonprofit industry use the overview for its simplicity. It was a really good overview, I felt like, of the overall plan. If you read the overview or the plan, either one, it says that the final rule recognizes that the pandemic caused broad-based impacts that affected communities, households, and small businesses across the country. For examples, many workers, unemployed, and small businesses saw a decline in revenue. The final rule describes these impacted households, communities, businesses, nonprofits. I personally don't know of anyone that was not impacted. I realize that you have parameters that are established through this document, which is a summary, or the original document that is the final rule. But if you read this, it actually puts precedence on businesses that are in financial risk of closing. Of closure. We are 119 years old. We are not going to close. 10 years, the Perry County Chamber of Commerce that has worked tirelessly through COVID-19 has not received a single dime in, I think, 10 years from the Perry County government. Nothing. Nothing has come from you to sustain us. So we have fundraised throughout the decade, throughout its inception, since 1903. The community has kept this organization because of its need and its importance for advocacy. If you were using the mental health or nonprofit or small business rubric, which was posted on the Perry County website, I assume was the rubric in which was referred to when you were doing your judging, correct? Is that the correct rubric?
Correct.
Okay. So it was taken down from the county's website. People were at a loss. They had no idea why they were not funded, and then they didn't have a rule to go back. But I knew I had used the small business rubric to help me write my application. So it says on here that I need proof of certain things. And it's kind of backwards in the rating for certain things, like risk assessment. If you are a 4 at a risk assessment, is that that's better if you're greater than 4. It's kind of a confusing rubric. I've dealt with rubrics throughout my career, but I feel like this one's a little bit different. Does anybody agree?
I do.
Well, this is the first time I've ever used it, and I thought it was a little confusing because this is the first time I've ever dove into grants and
Right.
tried to grade a grant.
I felt like it was confusing because it did not correlate exactly with the final rule, was one thing, and the other thing was the precedence that was put in here a lot of times was alleviated by the final rule.
But Wendy, the final rule came out after we had set these standards, and we were
So
trying to follow this.
you're holding people to the final rule?
No, hold on. What I'm saying is, a lot of things have changed. That's why we're
Oh, I
going to
know.
have this discussion here very shortly. Okay?
Right.
So
I agree. I agree.
want you to understand that.
I agree. I feel like the information, though, that people had at the time when they filled out their application was not correct. And by that, I can pass out the information that is currently on the Perry County, Indiana website. I believe the website is perrycounty.in.gov/ARP if you would like to look at that. On that website, it does say that the Perry County American Rescue Plan Advisory Committee was established to formulate a strategic funding plan that addresses community priorities and aligns with the eligibility of coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund. I think we all agree with that. I feel like you guys have put in tireless amounts of hours to work so hard to make sure that you are doing everything as this rule has been ever changing and is enormous to follow. I know that there's also been some question about interpretation of the rule, and that applauds to you for trying to understand some of those things. But on this, it does go through overview of American Rescue Plan and Coronavirus Local Fiscal Fund Recovery, and it talks about the package and that Perry County was lucky enough to receive $3.7 million. And under that, it states eligibility of uses. But people were eliminated for these.
But it's because we did not choose to do that in this particular round. We may choose to do it in the next round. We had.
That was not stated. This was the information given for this round, not last round, not next round. This was this round.
Those 4 categories aren't tied to the
5.
application. 5.
There, and you can look right here. They're on. I can tell you the page. They're copied out.
I can tell you the page 2, Wendy. But the problem is that you're taking 2 different pieces there.
I know, but who's responsible for the information that was given to applicants?
But you're not letting me finish my
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I?
You may. I'm sorry.
All right. So what we did was, if you see those 5, we didn't do all 5 of those. And we purposely said we didn't do all 5 of those in these applications. That's why we have 3 different applications. We have one for mental health, we have one for nonprofits, and we have.
But it's still on your website.
Let's go back, let's back up.
It's still on our website because those 5 categories are still possible for round 2, round 3, round 4, whatever we end up with in our plan.
We're just deciding what to do with the time.
We took a piece of that and attacked it this time with this. And we did these first because we thought they had priority.
And don't forget the survey. The survey is what dictated
That's correct.
those 3 pillars,
That's
what
right.
we chose.
So my recommendation is just to consider the information that's shared. I did verify with the Perry County News that at no time did they receive communication for a press release or legal to be notified for any of your meetings. They were given an agenda 24 hours before each meeting. There was never any kind of communication back and forth. I talked to everyone there. No, they didn't say that they didn't receive anything. They said that they didn't receive a communication for publication. So they received the agenda 24 hours before the meeting. 48 hours. But it's not going to be published because our paper's not printed locally. It takes 3 to 4 days to get something in the paper. So nobody knew about the meetings. Who in here knew that we were going to have an ARP that I told that it was going on, and who knew from this committee? Is anybody else? You watched the website? You heard it from another veteran. Not one single communication other than Tara Damon came to the public that I know of.
Now, Cindy, I'm going to say that as far as the commissioners and the council meetings, as long as I have been doing it, sending to the news, they never publish the meetings. They are to notify the news.
So you don't, if you're giving $1.2 million to help nonprofits and businesses in this community, why would you not want to tell them about it?
We did. We sent it to the news, but I don't.
It's 48 hours, the publication, you know that you can't get something published in them.
Published all the meetings. We sent it to them, but it's not.
You send them minutes from the meetings?
The agenda when the meeting is, they get a copy of it.
But nobody notifies the news to tell them that, so the public knew about your meetings. That's not, so 48 hours does not get you into the paper.
Comment that at the meeting, whenever we finalized all this to go forward with this little bit of money that we were giving out.
$1.2 million is a lot of money to a lot of businesses. I'm sorry.
Compared to the total.
Oh, okay.
It was not a lot compared to the total. It was 6 weeks before, and you were at the meeting, and we looked at you and asked you as president of the Perry County Chamber, could you please get this information out to small businesses, and you said yes.
I did.
So I'm not sure how small businesses did not get the information.
So it was also said a couple other things in that meeting. You might want to listen to it.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I did emails. I did phone calls.
Okay, we need to vote on the funding for your chamber.
I know, but I am a membership organization. All I do is serve my members in this community and work on quality of life and quality of place. So if I don't advocate for them when I have the microphone, I'm not doing my job.
We understand that, and you have, and we're going to take into consideration in this discussion.
Okay. And there's one thing I'd like to say about my application. In the rubric, which I believe to be possibly the rubric that was created, it came from Mr. Jarbo. I did use the same rubric when I wrote the application, but it talks about if you had, in the guide, it also said that you could ask for additional funds. You may not be approved, but if there's a need for appropriation, it could be made. So that was the reason I asked for $75,000 outside of, which was more than I thought we could ask for to recover some funds from 2020, not just 2021. And I had no idea because of the rubric that so many people, due to lack of information, could be unfunded, because the rubric has, if you filled it on here, it talks about if you, it doesn't say that it's a disqualifier, and on the application it didn't say it's a disqualifier. If you had anything outside of, it asks you a lot of different questions, so how were people to know that it was just based on loss of revenue?
And I will tell you that is one thing that we actually talked about in some of the meetings of having the yes/no eligibility questions. We did talk about that.
Because in here it says that I can ask for information from my grant. Yes, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Within our own parameters for this portion, we have so much money left over, we can move forward when we're getting ready to talk about that.
So you want me to sit down?
No, what I want to be able to answer.
You have to answer questions for your organization.
Yeah. We just had some questions so we can move forward.
I know. I want to move forward. But I do have a letter to share before I sit down. Go ahead.
So can I finish what I was?
Oh, absolutely. Go right ahead, Mr. Jarbo.
You would have actually got an apology from me if you would have waited for it. But we talked about actually having disqualification pieces in there. We did not do that at the time. But then final rules kicked into effect, and we actually had the 2021 piece. So that's where that came from. If you look at the timeline, yes, it was a piece that came in after the fact, but it was something from the feds. So it is what it was. So I mean, that's when you get a law passed down from the feds and it becomes effective April 1st.
I know, 30 days is not long. I don't envy that. I know that you have to turn around.
Already for I don't know how long, but that rule came into
Right.
effect, so. But my apology is that basically maybe we should have said something at that point, but I don't even know if I caught that at that point. It came out, and I was still reading the 400 some odd pages that were there.
I don't know if people heard you completely. Did you hear him? Can you say it again?
So if you look, in previous meetings, we talked about having yes, no eligibility questions. So it was like a pass or fail. You either did or you didn't, right? We talked about those. We had those. And we didn't include them in this time because we didn't really see where they were at that moment in time when we released the applications. But then the final rule came out and it was April 1st, which was after the fact at that point. And inside there basically is a yes-no question, and it's that March 20th, 2021. It says if you don't have losses after that, then you can't have, the funding's not there. So that's why we have that in there now, but we didn't have it in the beginning. And that is just a federal law that came down. It's nothing that we can change at that point. We may see that later on, now that we've done what we've done with the funds, that we may have more flexibility than what you talked about. Again, I hope I didn't speak too far out of turn.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So, that, I hope that made sense. If it didn't, come talk to you later. Maybe that can make sense. So.
Wendy, I do have a question.
Go right
It comes
ahead.
back to your application.
Yes.
One concern I have is your income for 2019 and your income for 2020, which is down substantially. And then you never return to your income in 2021 anywhere near your 2019.
Right,
It's roughly $20,000 difference.
Right.
Yet your expenses went up $16,000 from 2019 to that. And that gets back to the sustainability portion that what we don't want to do is give someone a little bit of money only to sustain them for a year.
Right.
And then they go out of business.
Right.
So the question was asked, what's your plan in order to address, normally a business, when they see that the revenues dropped off, the expenses are chopped as severely as possible.
Right.
In order to do that. So what's your plan going forward to address this inequity here?
And I did answer that. I actually wrote about a page and a half on that and gave the history of how we recovered for
Is that in this document?
119 years, yes.
That you sent to Charlie?
Yes, I was instructed to send it to Charlie, and I just want to say that I am a citizen of the county, and I have no government email, but I do know that the county's email or server had been hacked, and that email was incapacitated for some time. Am I true? Is that true?
Yes, it was.
The communication email for this committee?
The entire county, which was
Right.
completely out of our hands. And it was down for 3.5 days completely.
So that could have been part of the reason of not getting emails too,
Yeah.
because I had a lot of people say that they didn't have rejected emails after that. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, I mean, I know you wrote it in here, but it's so small, I can't read it, I just got it this evening. So could you elaborate on how you're going to address those shortcomings in the funding?
Sure, absolutely. So during COVID-19, as it states in the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery, the funds can be used for.
No. I understand what the regulation,
Yeah.
what we can use for. As a business,
Right.
as an entity, you're the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
You're taking in less money
Right.
and your expenses are substantially higher.
Because-
How are you going to address that and keep that a viable business? That's my second question.
Right, we asked the county through the ARP funds to help us in recovery. I have made contacts with state and federal agencies about other funds. Unfortunately, because we are a nonprofit 501c6, we don't qualify for very many recovery plans, which is still out there. We recovered from using one round of PPP. The board of directors chose not to bill our members during the impact of COVID-19 if they were affected. They had no income. They were closed down. We did not bill. So help to recover our members that we lost in 2020 because most of our businesses, if not all of them, were sustained. And we hope that we were part of that effort.
So currently in this year, you're at this rate.
This year, we should turn a profit if COVID-19 and the community continues to grow and prosper as it is.
Randy, I can answer that question.
This is Tina Ziggelgruber. She is the president of the Perry County.
Tina, if you wouldn't mind, come up to the microphone so we can get it.
I just want to say, we did not bill any dues, and we are funded totally by dues during COVID. Totally. And from the sponsors we get, so that is why we lost so much money. Why our expenses went up is because of what we try to do to help the small businesses stay in business during this. So that's why our expenses went up.
And the cost of goods.
Yes, and the cost of goods. But, you know, we helped several businesses figure out if they could apply for the PPP. We did marketing for them. We did all kinds of social media for them to try to help our members. That's why our expenses went up.
So in other words, you hired additional people to come in and provide these services?
No.
It's outside of your own?
No, but we didn't get their funds. That's what we would have normally paid for this, but because we didn't bill them, but we still did the services. So that is why we increased. Our expenses increased because there was more that we had to do during COVID for these businesses.
You did more promotion.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely,
For the
yes,
losses.
yes. Okay.
Just,
I was just trying to answer it simple.
Yeah.
Another thing is like, we are part of so many different, we started our events back in 2021. We were completely closed down like everyone else in 2020. And the cost of goods, like for example, the chamber picnic that has been going on for about 60 years at Moulters Camp, the steaks per pound were about $15 versus the regular price. So cost of goods, and I'm sure that you understand the supply chain shortage and the issues with finding your regular supplies that you need. And can I talk about the marketing plan that I presented and is included in a project overview? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how is that, I just have a question, like how is that sub-granting if that's my service to the county in which I do? Like marketing for businesses and using that plan that I provided.
You're looking at me like I didn't.
It was voted not to fund it, $70,400 for about 90 hours of marketing to help Recovery Act on, for chamber members, nonprofits, and other businesses starting in the community.
Yeah, I might be, but I don't remember who brought that issue about sub-granting. We weren't going to grant to an organization who in turn basically paid it to another organization to do something. It was for the primary person in the case of the chambers, who we are. And we would have to go, if we really wanted to get into that, I'm not sure the qualifications of the contractor, because there's no data provided to us of his experience in any of these fields.
Was that part of the criteria of
I
his
don't.
experience?
I don't think there was a name even given, was there?
Yes,
Was?
I gave you a whole plan, and he said in that meeting that this is not even what the business does, when in actuality, how many times has Feed the Giant done marketing for people in the street?
I said that, but there was a name in there because I was asked that question by someone, and so I pulled the application to see, and I did. I
No,
missed
someone
it.
said it
I
in the
missed
meeting
it.
too. It was Randy.
Oh.
I don't see
That was the reason why I said that, because I looked at the application and didn't see it, so.
He's
apologize.
working for the health department as a bioterrorist under a grant up there.
He owns Feed the Giant.
Yes.
It was Entrepreneur of the Year about 3 years ago. And if you haven't had the experience of working with them, you are at a loss because they do almost anything. They have committed so much to this community to adapt to its needs. I'm so proud of him for being an entrepreneur in the back. And he does a great job for the chamber anytime he does any kind of marketing for us or cost hospital or whoever is doing it, I mean, he does a great job.
Uh,
So that is something that we do constantly, is we utilize people like him to help, you know, our
knowing who it is now, I can say since I'm a state, well, I didn't do the applications for these, I abstained from them. Knowing who it is now, basically, I can say since I'm abstaining too, that I have done work with him in the past on social media and stuff like that. So it is in his wheelhouse to actually do this. So.
He's been in operation about 4 years, I think.
The question is, are we going to replace the losses as we intended to do?
This is replacing.
I was just.
I think we're
I was just
nitpicking
clear.
this.
I was just, all I was doing was clarifying.
Right.
So.
I mean, I think that's where we are, because there's a lot of other people that have a lot of great ideas. to
Sure.
use money.
I know, but that was the comment you brought up, so that's why I addressed it.
About what?
That this is not even what he does. You
Well-
said she has picked a company that this is not even what they do.
My understanding was, and maybe I'm incorrect, that he works for the county
He
health
sure
department.
does.
That doesn't
He absolutely
matter.
does.
He has his own business also.
Then that's how, I thought he was an employee of the county.
He is, absolutely, he does a great job. And it was branded, it has his address, and
Okay,
it
that-
has his information.
Which I
And
didn't
I
know.
even included the contract of how we
It was
were
in
going
the,
to
it was in her plans.
Yeah.
sustain and help businesses.
I was so confused about the two different amounts, like we talked about.
Okay. Anything else now? Is there any reason that I should not apply for that next time, if you're not going to fund it this time?
You know, if you could tell us what the next time is going to be, then we can answer.
But I would just encourage you, I have a letter from my board of directors. I would like for you to read it, but I'd also like for you to make sure the information for the meetings that you have and the time that you put into it is known. Because it's not been put out there where the meetings are.
Now, I'm going to have to defend those two over there, because they go out of their way to get everything posted. Now, I don't know what else they can do, but they do a bang up job.
Where was it posted?
On our,
To the news, and it's posted on the website now on our calendar. Recently, we're posting the meetings on the calendar. On the county website.
Yeah, so on the ARP page, it just says most of them are on after the solid waste or whatever that meeting was.
after the council meeting.
After the
That's how we
council
had
meeting, that's it.
scheduled.
These have just been some special meetings.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
We can't use it.
yeah, so, but they're public meetings and they weren't publicized. Yeah.
On our calendar, on our homepage, as soon as I'm aware of a meeting date, I'll put it on there. I may not have the agenda yet. And the reason sometimes that the meeting notice doesn't get sent out until close to 48 hours, because we're waiting to get the information.
I know.
Well,
And I know it's changed sometimes, meeting times change.
Paper to participate and come attend these meetings so that they could actually
And
help spread the word.
They,
And
right, they
some of the
did
meetings
say
they
that
have.
if they received a press release or that they would publish those.
Yeah.
For-
We get copied when they send it to the newspaper.
But they're 48 hours, they're not able to publish them so anybody can come.
And they give you some kind of, we wait on an agenda before we post a meeting notice, and we don't have that all the time.
I think,
We wait on it to get
I
it.
might be speaking out of turn, but I think what Tara was referring to is it would be nice if the paper would come to the meetings and then they could report in the paper of what is, you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think they have come to, and they have done reports on
So
this.
it's up to them to report when you're gonna meet?
But they have come to our meetings. I know they have in the past, but, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
All right. None?
I'll make a motion to get them from their income in 82 to their income in 2021 is approximately $21,000 difference, gross income. And I'll make a motion to grant them the $21,000 to put them back to the same amount in 2020, 2019.
And what about the other amount?
for the advertising, I think
Their
that's out of the,
marketing
I mean, I think that's out of what we were granting money, unless somebody else wants to make a different motion.
That shows, yeah, but I think if they would have had the revenue, she could have done the marketing plan. That's what a lot of this is about.
And a lot of people had a lot of other things that they wanted to proceed with, that if the revenue didn't show a loss, all we did was put them back to what their gross amount of revenue was. We didn't make them beyond healing.
We didn't have that as part of the criteria.
So-
Where?
Talk about it.
But was it on the application guide? 'Cause
Yes,
it-
we asked, that's why we asked for the revenue.
I know for the revenue, but it's, I mean, they have to also show an impact, a negative impact from COVID. And all of these applicants have.
Oh, I know, and we said that
You
already
know,
at the
I mean-
beginning of the meeting, and we're gonna get to that to talk about it.
I just.
We're gonna get
I
to
think that's-
how to rectify
I mean,
that.
I don't deny that, I'm not saying that they don't deserve the money, but so does all these other people who applied.
Yeah,
If we make an exception for one, we have to make an exception for everyone.
No.
And we can, I'm speaking. And when we get to this number at the end, hopefully, we can all agree that we can move forward and fund some of these things. I think Tom put it best when he was going through, you know, about what all of these organizations mean to us. And so, it doesn't mean they're not getting funded.
No, I just want to know how that Ian doing promotions for the people we serve, how that is not something that should be funded, because that is helping numerous people in Perry County and businesses. That's part of what we do. That's why it was put in that plan, so that we can continue to do that while our revenue comes back up now that we are billing our members.
And I think, Tina, the way we have been in the past, we've looked at the money that the entity lost and we replaced that. Now, we haven't went beyond that I'm aware of for any other group. Not to say we won't do that later on. But in this round, that is kind of the pattern we've established to replace the funds lost between the affected year and in 2021. So we'd be going into a different lane here if we pass that. Now, maybe the group wants to do that, but it's outside of what we did for the other groups. But that's the discussion. Yeah, I got a motion. If we don't have a second, it dies.
I'll second.
Yeah, and your motion is to fund
21.
Fund them up.
1,000 at this time.
Yeah, they
At this
had an
time.
income of 82,000 approximately, and an income of 61,000 in 2021. 2021 is our affected year, when we have to have a loss from March 3rd, 2021 going forward. So they lost approximately $21,000. And my motion was to replace that through ARP funding, put them back to their base year of 2019.
And I seconded the motion.
And it was seconded by Sherry. Any other comments,
Yeah.
discussion?
So here's the thing, though. I mean, we knew last minute that this final rule change. We should have made an addendum. We should have made an announcement to this application process, extended it so that they would know the criteria they had to do, because they've been let down.
I agree.
And that's on us.
Exactly.
That's what we need to talk about at number 5 and how we can fix that going forward.
Can we go ahead
Yeah, I
and
mean,
vote
I've-
on this? Hold on.
I've already
Time out.
apologized once
Well-
for it, and I'll apologize again for this exact same thing. But I just want to get to number 5 so I can rectify it.
Yeah.
Because me apologizing for it does
Doesn't
nothing.
change a thing.
Okay.
And I'll sit here and I will apologize to you for doing that. We should have the criteria in there. That apology is given freely.
Okay.
But I have to get the number 5 on the agenda to correct it.
I think it should have been number 1.
Okay, the agenda may be wrong too. But
And that's what I wanted to move it up the line, Tina, okay? But, okay.
We're only an advisory group. Do you want to just throw everything out we've done before and give it back to the commissioners and council and say, have at it, boys?
No.
Because we
Okay.
have spent a lot of time on this and we've tried our best.
Right.
But obviously that's not good enough.
Okay,
And they're
okay.
not going to allow us to get to item 5 to even discuss it.
Okay, you have a motion and a second.
And it's a second.
Call for a vote, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain, sorry.
Thank you. 21,000 to the chamber. Greg didn't vote, I don't think.
I abstained.
And to make that clear, that doesn't mean there's no more.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's get to 5.
Let's get to 5.
Sat on these committees, I understand, you have to have thick skin, I understand, it's hard because you have to align everything. Believe me, we gave $170,000 in ERI funds to the community, it was hard. We denied people, but we stayed within our criteria, but we tried to help them get that criteria too. If we didn't understand something, we called them, we talked to them, we let them plead their case. And so what I'm saying is, I understand your heartache.
And Tina, we, as a group, did not receive any kind of substantial email responses on any problems.
It doesn't sound like the group knew that they could email.
Wait, what?
Well, I think Emily was down there at the foundation and
I
she was
received
answering
30
questions.
phone calls in one day. That's.
And Tara, if you remember the meeting, Greg
I was here
specifically,
from day one, I remember all of them.
Greg specifically stated that if Emily couldn't handle the technical question, they would refer it to you. You were to respond by email, carbon copying the entire group, so we were all aware of it. I don't know that I received one carbon copy that was dated with a response to an individual. And if I did, it was one or
I'll forward you
two.
to them, I can forward you several.
It's too late to forward to me.
All
If
right,
I was
all
getting 30 emails that there was a problem, I
They
would have
weren't
said,
emails, they were
wait
phone
a minute.
calls. They were phone calls.
Then we were doing it in writing so that we had a written response, so there was not a misinterpretation. And the rest of the board then could look at what the response was, and if they felt uncomfortable, they would say, no, this is how we want to approach this. But I didn't receive any, and that makes you think that everything's running smooth when nothing comes through
And there were
as the agreed
several
upon email.
responses I didn't get in return when I would ask somebody. Sherry would.
Sherry was the second one
on
that
the
you
se-
went
yeah,
to.
but there was times where I didn't get any response either, and I had to put Emily on hold. I mean,
It was simply how you were supposed to answer it. If that was the case and you were getting all these requests, then we would have been aware of a serious problem with something within the application process.
I did notify you guys
Yeah.
several times.
I didn't receive an email.
All right, let's
Okay.
continue on,
Troy
please.
Fire Department, Tom.
We will.
Troy
Finish
Fire
this up.
Department, the question was, are they a government agency or private owned? They are private entity. That was a question that was answered. They went from a government owned by the town of Troy to a private entity that signed the contract for fire protection for Troy and parts of Troy Township in 1979 with their own 501c3 or designation. So that's
So
the
they
answer
meet
to
the
that.
criteria.
And again, the reason for this is we did not allow any government entity to apply in the first round. Not that they would not be eligible, not that they wouldn't meet the requirements, we just left them out. That's why the question came up about the Troy Fire Department and whether it was a government entity, and that's where this question came from.
And then $5,000 was the
$5,000
was their
Was
loss.
what they requested. So
I'd like to make a motion that we fund the Troy Fire Department $5,000.
and I will second that motion.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Carried.
one abstention.
One
Of course.
abstention. Next one is Revive Counseling Center. Who's got that one?
That was me, and I think we got our gentleman here. Come on up.
Yeah, Josh is
Yeah. You should have got an email from me with his
Yeah.
Yeah,
written
you
responses.
did.
Yes, thank you.
I just didn't print it.
All right. Josh Harris, the Revive Counseling Center. I'm having a good time this evening. I look forward to coming to more of these.
May need your services after here, Josh.
I'll leave business cards in the parking
Did you
lot.
see me punch in here? I'm listening. I'm just trying to get info for these guys.
10-4, I'm just here to answer any questions y'all have. I think that my responses to the questions were submitted to you guys. If you have any further questions or you want me to elaborate further on on my answers, I'd be happy to. We are, if you want a real quick 30-second, we're...
Just tell us, Josh, what you're going to do with funding if we fund your organization.
Sure, we're a growing organization. We just recently opened up offices in Madisonville. We have a gentleman in Paducah tonight looking at opening a location there. And I was kind of brought on to help them grow into Indiana. This will be our first venture into Indiana. We're looking at locations in Jasper and Tell City. We have formed a relationship with church, Redemption Church, due to the simple fact that they have office space. They recently purchased what most of us know as the junior high school building, and the campus pastor there said, "Josh, we got more space than we know what to do with, and we'd like to let the community use perhaps some of our," maybe I shouldn't be saying that, he will be upset with me, but some organizations may be able to use some of our space for their own office space. And I'm like, well, I would like to, talk to you about that. And he said, well, what I'm going to give you is going to be unfinished space. It's for those of us who went to Tell City Junior High School in the 90s. It's Mr. Walsh's room, it looks like. And it's going to be given to us, but we need to finish that space so we can utilize it. The rest of the funds will be used to provide cover session fees for folks that can't afford it otherwise. And I don't know if it's too late to put this in there and amend it. I'm not trying to cause, we've also in the past week discussed perhaps even offering that, covering sessions fees with these funds for first responders. I don't know if it's too late to discuss that, and if that's the case, then that's fine as well. But yeah, we're a counseling service. We have counselors, therapists on staff with the different trainings and backgrounds. I myself am a pastoral counselor. In Kentucky, we also have a state licensed therapist. This is our first venture into Indiana. We are currently recruiting folks that have state licensure. I'm not one of them. We are recruiting them now, and it's our goal to have someone hired with state licensure within 3 months. Obviously, the job market is pretty crazy right now, but that would be our goal. So we provide counseling all the way from anxiety, depression, family counseling, on down the list, addiction counseling, trauma recovery, grief recovery, the whole gamut. We have, and we one of the reasons why. Sorry to interrupt you, Charlie.
No, you're fine.
One of the reasons why we're coming to Tell City is we already have so many clientele driving to Owensboro to meet with us there, or meeting with us on telehealth that are Perry County residents.
How many of those?
I don't have an exact figure for you. It's kind of, I would say that for myself personally, I would say that probably a third to 40% of my clients are currently, we all drive to Owensboro, or they just don't come. I mean, that's another figure that I haven't thrown out there. So many people have said, please come to Tell City.
What kind of numbers? 30 to 40%, 300 people?
I'm talking about myself personally. Personally, I'm only working Mondays and Tuesdays seeing clients, and I'm seeing 12 clients a week. It's kind of the goal. So it will just not be me.
Space.
And it would be located.
Then that's just my client load. We plan on obviously having, we have many more counselors in different locations and in Owensboro, and we'll be adding more staff here as well as needed.
And Josh, just so that we make sure that we follow the guidelines. First of all, I appreciate your thorough response. You provided a lot of information. I just want to make sure that what you're providing with this is counseling and not ministry.
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question. I would say that counseling can be considered a ministry. What I do is pastoral counseling. We are not a church by any means. We are a nonprofit.
That's all I need.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit by
That's all I need.
recognized by the state of Indiana. Yeah.
Well,
funding.
Right.
Sure. Well, yeah, our connection with Redemption is that, just that if they would be owning the property and would be utilizing it.
And we understand that some
Okay.
people consider council and ministry. So,
Right.
it's just a different use of term that I wanted to clarify.
Sure.
Yeah, when I talk to him on the phone, I use the example of a food pantry. Food pantry is a ministry to a lot of churches.
Sure. Exactly.
But it's
Right.
not a
Not-
true ministry in
they
this
are not.
sense. In the sense of federal, it's not a true ministry.
And we serve people from a large variety of religious and faith backgrounds. Or-
It's a fabulous ministry in the sense that we're talking about it, but in the realm of the feds, it's not a ministry. Is what it really means. It's not a religious ministry.
It's not a religion.
It's not religious food.
So what kind of, is there certain qualifications that you have in order to, if we provide funding in order to, income level or something?
Yeah,
That allows them to have, is it?
Yeah, there's a board that goes through the application, and I think a lot of the information. There, I think that the perimeter, I'm not on the board that, I just see the people that come to me. So the parameters that the board looks through with the applications are I think, in that email.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I know it says that, and it says you ask the client whether they're going, whether they can pay $5, $10, $15. It's kind of like a self-billing amount or whatever. But my question is when the money is allocated, it's going to be used to subsidize those who cannot afford to pay for your services. That's your endeavor?
Yes, and I would, if we can include first responders, that's something that we have discussed amongst staff this week. If that's too late to discuss, then I understand that.
Okay. I think back to what I was going to ask, the two questions. One was the licensed professional, when you thought that person. The other one is some of the money is going to be used to remodel that room.
Mm-hmm.
That room is in a church. If your company should happen to fold, that will still be theirs. Are we walking on thin ice about remodeling? That's my question to the board. What do you think, Greg?
Can I?
It's a thin line, but
I know it.
If we had a triple net lease with any other organization,
Right.
would it be any different if we had a triple net lease with any other organization? If it was if it was the Knights of Columbus and we had a triple net lease with them, how would that be?
Okay.
my answer to that one, maybe it's not as logical as some would like, but my answer to that one is he could have easily came to us and said he would like to have funding for salaries or for the light bill
Right.
because this is not the same as the small profit or the small business or the nonprofit.
Right. This is mental health.
This is mental health,
Okay.
which was different. It was actually a project / service.
Okay.
And so I think this probably still is okay, to tell you the truth.
I'm fine with that.
This project is not administered, it is for council.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. I think we're still within okay.
I'm playing devil's advocate, unfortunately, just asking the question.
Obviously, we're an advisory, so what would happen was probably it's going to go to the council and it'll probably hit the commissioner's desk at some point too. As a commissioner, I'll tell you that I'm going to ask for legal counsel on that just to make sure we're okay.
Okay.
But my mindset.
No, we don't have to.
We don't have to?
No, you don't have to, Greg. See? That was a joke.
In number 5. In number 5, we may be okay.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I just wanted that clarified.
Tuesday.
Okay? Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we provide the funding
Mm-hmm.
now, how do you survive next year and the following year?
With the client, we would come to Tell City within a few years. I don't know exactly when, because there's such a demand here already. I mean, there's so private pay individuals, people with insurance want our services here. This expedites that.
So you're saying there's going to be sufficient revenue to support your organization?
Yes.
It's just a helpful push to get you there.
Yes, sir.
To get them a place to provide.
A kickstart.
Right.
Yeah, and to be even further clear, with our we plan on having a temporary office here let me start over. If we feel that we are able to get these monies to go ahead and have a permanent location at the redemption at the junior high school, we will probably go ahead and start a temporary office of some kind. We don't even know what that looks like yet, before that construction is complete, because there's such a need here. And then we can start utilizing the monies for low-income individuals.
Okay.
Yes, it's sustainable.
No other questions?
Okay.
Sherry?
Is there any room to discuss the adding into it, offering, covering the fees for sessions with first responders, or is that just?
If you do it within the same amount, it's not even,
Oh.
it's not
Right.
even a discussion point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Sherry, were you going to make a motion here?
I'll make a motion to approve.
What amount?
And this,
They asked for 75.
I'm okay with 75.
I'll second Greg's motion to fund for 75,000.
I've got a first and second, but I would like to have some discussion on this if we want to.
Sure.
Just for your purpose, Greg, I would prefer that you amend that to fund him for his 45,000 counseling with the stipulation to just make sure that the other funding for construction is okay.
That is the reasoning. As an advisory, I'm okay with saying 75. When it goes to the council and the commissioners, I think we need to make sure that we do that legal thing. I will amend my motion to make that more clear.
We know that 45 is approved,
Yep.
the council end of it.
Yep.
The other is
Perfectly fine with that.
depending upon legal counsel.
So that's your motion to amend mine?
I'm just.
Or you want me to
No.
amend my motion? I'm all right with amending my motion.
Please do.
To be
That's
that.
just what I.
That's fine.
Okay.
Who's on first?
So it's, yeah,
What's on second?
yeah.
Who seconded that?
Right.
It's in there. The amended-
Okay.
Any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, including Greg this time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 4. We've discussed that a little bit, but go ahead and,
Okay, now.
You just have to sit right there.
Tom, were you involved with that? Greg and
Yep.
Charlie, were you all three on that?
we were on
conference?
the conference call.
Share the group of you now, because I wasn't, Sherry wasn't, Tara wasn't.
Okay, so-
As to what's happened to the funding due to the government.
I'll give first shot. You tell me if I got it wrong, okay? So in the final rule, it allows for the county, and can you hear me okay? Okay. So in the final rule, it allows for the county to take up to $10 million in revenue loss without any calculations, without any justifications, anything like that. It's just an assumption that you can take up to that amount, but not more than what you were awarded. And we were awarded 3.872. I always want to say 82. I always want to get that extra little but. So 3.72. And so we basically went to the council, we went to the commissioners, we went amongst ourselves, and what we decided was to take all of our 3.72 as revenue loss for the county, okay? Which basically then puts it in a fund separate than any other fund. We have to track exactly where that money goes out of that fund. We're not allowed to transfer it from that fund to any other fund and do anything weird with it, okay? It's got to come out of that fund. But by doing so, that frees our hands and makes it way more flexible what we can do with this money. So for instance, one of the things that has come up, we talked about 2020 losses. That could be a possibility with this. We could go back now and not acknowledge the 2021 rule, but maybe acknowledge the 2020 as well. We also can use it for things like salaries on the government side. So like if we wanted to pay salaries for a while, that then gives us money that we could have for revolving loans at that point. So there's a lot of things that we can do with this money now that was just not possible before. And so that makes, when we get into discussion number 5, it makes it a lot easier for us to have a much broader discussion. Did I miss anything really important?
What you can do, since we, as the commissioners, our plan adopted that the entire amount is for lost revenue, that the council then, it turns it over to the council.
Yep.
The council can take that $3.7 million and pay normal expenses that the county pays, and the money that they was gonna pay for that, like salaries or others, they can take that and do it, and do these grant programs, which makes it easier to administer and makes it more flexible.
And I'd like to add one other thing. We knew we could use the money for nonprofit. It was small business that we had the question about, and the attorney told us that we can use the money to make grants for both of those. So that took a lot of weight off of
we had
everything at the beginning.
A lot of conversations with a lot of lawyers and a lot of different organizations. And I think Kelly back there too, she helped us out on this. She's on the Tell City ARP, and she had the exact same questions we did. So Tell City and the county kind of worked as a team on this one. And we found out basically that we can do that. And that was a big thing that we did not want to put it in that $10 million loss bucket if we couldn't keep doing that. And so we got those questions answered. So
and it makes the reporting.
That's what I was going to say.
Reporting and auditing is so much easier at this point.
So much easier, and the easier it is, the less chance for mistake. Because if there was a discrepancy, then the county would have to pay it back.
Exactly.
Right. So that frees that away, that we don't have to worry about that now. So
but we can continue with the program the way we adapted.
Yeah.
So my question is, there are stipulations as far as federal regulations. Those are still intact though, correct?
You can't get rid of all those. No, you can't get rid of all of them. No. There are still, regardless, even if it was out of our own general fund, let's say we made a grant fund out of our own general fund, there are still federal guidelines that we have to follow because we're doing that. You know, it's just the way it is.
Right.
But it does loosen them quite a bit compared
You still
to
have to follow all the guidelines.
all the
right, ADA, you have to follow those guidelines and other government agencies.
For instance, when you remodel your room or whatever, there are certain guidelines for quoting and all that kind of stuff and getting materials. Those will have to be followed if you use that money to do that.
And that's something we probably need to get that information and disseminate it to them.
Yep.
Okay.
And the ADA compliant.
Right. Right.
So those rules don't go away. So there are still rules there. It's not just free for all, but it's a lot easier.
Are there components of the final rule though that you're free from, you're not bound to anymore by that method?
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but it's several.
It loosens up some of those.
Yes.
A lot of the reporting, both for us and the person who received the funding, will be simplified.
Yeah.
Are there eligibility things that are removed, or is a lot of
I think Greg stated
The
that you
biggest
can go
one.
back and it clearly says here March 3rd, 2021 and forward. That's where the losses have to have occurred. If what I understand correctly, that's no longer a requirement. So
that's the biggest one that I see, is that you can go further back now.
So and it's going to give us some flexibility with that.
And we didn't know that too.
Right, until Friday.
Yeah,
There
literally
was
last Friday.
Yes.
This went on during where all this was going on between the attorneys, State Board of Accounts, and the only one that was being targeted was the county, and we didn't want to be in the target. So they finally worked it out with a conference call, thanks to Pam put it all together, I believe.
Yeah,
That's
she sure did.
one of her wizardries. But then we got an answer with all of them on the phone call together. So we finally got it resolved.
Because this came out in January 6th, and I tell you, I'm still learning things in this dang thing. So it's not easy. And I'm not a lawyer, so this is all legalese, so it's kind of hard for me to read too. But that, like I said about the whole eligibility thing that we talked about on the last application, this came out in January 6th. It really didn't hit us until like after the application that subrecipients are going to have to follow all this and that if we don't do it by losses. So you can see how it's just kind of evolved as you learn more and more about this 400-page document. So.
I got a comment right here.
Yes.
On nonprofits that are not headquartered in Perry County, and even the CEO of that nonprofit who lives out of Perry County, I think it defeats the purpose of that money staying in Perry County. And I think the precedence should be on organization nonprofits that are actually headquartered here and had people running those nonprofits that actually live here.
I implore you to talk with Judge Lucy Goffman. I teach Cmte cases, which are children in need of services. Those are all your foster care cases, your children who have been removed from abusive homes. I teach parenting classes for free for those parents with the goal of creating safe parents. I also teach in the jail every week to your community members who will be released.
Well, that's not, but I got the floor. I got the floor. Just wait a minute.
You pause.
Okay.
I don't want to get too.
He's actually got the floor now.
I really don't want to get involved with this. We're going to get into 5 here, and the way it's going, I'm sure it's not going to be resolved tonight. But one thing, we found the same thing with when we went into mental health, because there's not a lot of offerings. And mental health was one area they decided early on they wanted to fund.
Yeah.
And we went through that same process and found that a lot of organizations are based outside of the county. And if we eliminate all those, we can't provide the service to the community that we wish to provide. So with that discussion, we were more interested in getting the services taken care of than exactly where they were located, because that was our mission. So, go on.
And I want to say something real quick. Our survey that we put out there, when it came to mental health, I would say about 85% of the responses said we need it, we don't have it here, enough here. And what is provided, they're coming from another, like with Josh. So, I mean, that's a consideration. That's a definite need that the county needs. And if they're serving Perry Countyans, that's something that was part of the consideration when we evaluated these.
The one point I had is large awards. And I've heard, my hearing's not the best, but that's a disability. But there was a mention of up to $75,000 award. Now, you start handing out $75,000 awards very much, and you're going to choose what money you got real quick. And there's going to be a lot of nonprofits.
Well, there were certain buckets for different things.
Right.
So nonprofits has its own bucket of money. Mental health had its own set of money. And small businesses
yeah,
do
but
too.
you're handing out $75,000, and then that money pool is going to go shoot like that, and you're just not going to go very far.
But you're talking about 75 from a mental health bucket versus a
We only had
nonprofit.
4 applicants.
Yeah.
We did not
Yeah.
spend all of the money we had in the mental health bucket.
Yeah,
We did
because
not spend
we
it all.
had 500,000 set aside for mental health.
Only.
350 for the other 2.
Yeah.
We had 4. The limit was 75,000 on that category. On the other categories, it was 25,000. Okay, so it's apples and oranges. I know.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
That's scary that we're thinking alike.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
so let us proceed to the next one, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Everybody comfortable with the government moving of the funds? And I think, did the council not sign a resolution to allow us to continue?
Yeah, we had the council
Yes.
sign a resolution. Again, a shout out to Kelly. She worked with Jeff Hagedorn to do the cities, and we just kind of copied it. And so that was a.
It's
good, and
only
it's all basically what it says is that they'll follow the recommendation of this committee.
Exactly. This
So,
this
there is
committee
some
is not going to
checks
be
and balances.
mothballed. It's going to be one of the steps.
If we're done with that, let's go to 5. That's our last one.
All right. May I begin on
Can I
this?
just ask one
Okay.
question first? Before we go to 5 and start making recommendations, I would like to clarify with Greg how much we've awarded so far.
Sure.
I know tonight we've awarded $117,000, but I don't have the number that we awarded last week. That way we know what we have to work
Okay,
with.
okay.
That's our only reason.
That's
I'll
fine.
turn it over to you.
Okay.
Okay, so in nonprofits, it was $94,000 so far.
Does that include tonight?
That includes tonight.
Okay, so 94.
All these numbers will conclude tonight. So,
Okay.
all right, now let me get a second to pull up the other spreadsheets.
Small business should be 40,000.
Mental health.
So 94,000 nonprofit.
I have to add in the 75. Hold
Yeah,
on one second.
40,000 for small business because we had the 220s. That's all we did on small business.
$128,500 for mental health.
128.
128.5. And
For a
Pam,
total?
please check me at some point.
And that includes
Tonight.
tonight's, right?
That includes tonight. All these numbers would include tonight.
And our total amount,
I'm looking for the last one here.
262.
260.
Do you know what small business was? Do I have
40,000. We
Okay.
gave out 220s.
Okay. Okay. There we go.
262.
It's easy enough.
That's what I get in
262.
my head.
Okay.
Is that what you come up with?
62,500 is what?
Has been awarded so far
Out of the 1.2.
million.
All right, so
262.
if I, go
That's
ahead.
what we awarded to the county. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I first got on this board, the main objective was this money was purposely sent to us to help you people out. I feel like we failed. And this has nothing to do with anything other than the way I was raised is to do the right thing. And I feel the right thing now is for us to open up phase one or continuous to phase one for all the agencies that applied that we said did not have the proper paperwork, to give them time to get the paperwork in, that we reevaluate and go from there to award the other money out. Yes, ma'am.
So my agency is not in that category?
No, if you were in, you had applied, anyone who had applied in this it's reopened for you. Any other information that we needed, any paperwork that was missing. Now, this is my suggestion. I'm only one member. But I feel like the whole board agrees that this was a flawed system. Tara made the comment about you guys were not professional grant writers. I had no idea what I was getting into until I started looking at 49 grants and trying to grade them. My biggest concern was I going to grade them low and they were going to get disqualified? And then we went to the other system the other night where we were going through, the paperwork was gone and they were tossed out. I've been sick ever since that meeting. I don't like how it came out.
To add to Charlie, I felt the same way, that when you disqualify that large percentage, there's something wrong with the process. And at the end of that night, I thought, well, we didn't have a plan that night. We needed to digest it. And so after thinking about it, the good news is we didn't give the money to anything else.
No.
We still have it. Nobody's giving it away. We just, the ones that were awarded, were like, okay, no questions, we're going to award them. But that didn't 100% take away the rest of the money. We still have what the total amount I want to do.
It's almost close to $1 million.
Yeah, close to $1 million still
We got
in the pot.
almost $1 million left. First round. Second round will be another.
Well, I still think we
distribution.
should
So-
consider this the continuation of round one.
Yes.
That's my suggestion.
And I agree with Charlie that we have a lot to deal with it, and the email issues to the misunderstanding of how to apply, and all the people that put all the effort into that first application, that we should give a chance to fix what we deemed was incorrect. And hopefully all of those questions will be answered and all those issues will be taken back to the applicants.
Tom, I think we have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. And I know that I'm focusing on me, but here I am doing that again. I was one of the 7 that got through the first round because I am a professional grant writer, and so our grant went through. We were denied, and I think your wording was, it is out of the realm of what what our agency does. And now that you have clarification on what our agency does, please let me know what steps I need to do moving forward, and that can be a conversation later. But I don't fall into this category. I was denied based on erroneous information, so I need to know how I move forward with my agency.
And that's what I'm suggesting, that we open up the door again, and I'm going to have to go to the experts. Greg?
Don't point at me.
As far as the application.
I got the same info you got.
Can they, but what I'm saying on the application form that we set up, can that be opened back up where they can replace the material that's missing?
Well, I just sent a text out to see what we can do there.
Okay.
My hope is that we can,
Now-
but that's a conversation that I think we're jumping the gun doing the IT work before we actually have the conversation of what we want to do.
Now,
So
I want to approach this at a different angle. We've went through this, we've had all of our restrictions. Now we're under a new set of rules because we transferred all the money.
Right.
So are we going to hold them all accountable to the old rules we just threw out? And that's what we have to do if we go back with the same process and say, come back in and try to change it. Or should we revisit this here, decide what our new rules are going to be, allow these people potentially, that didn't qualify to now qualify, and allow everybody to apply with the understanding, here's the new rules and regulations you must follow now versus the old final rules that we were under with the last time.
And there
So-
would be no reason you couldn't use your same
Yeah, it's the same
application,
information.
just add that stuff in.
Yeah,
And
if
the dates need to change or the requirements need to change, we need to make them aware of now what's required.
It might make it easier.
Here's what I think the application that we have is still a solid application in the sense that it gets the right information to us if we help them understand what the documents and stuff that we need, right? So if we use the same application, if we can just open it back up and let's say, I don't know who I can pick on. I'll pick on you. So if you had some documentation that was a little flawed or whatever, we said, hey, fix it. And so if we said fix it and he redid it and resubmitted that into this exact same application and he says it's done, I'm submitting it, I think we can just go through the same process there, but the rules are now not just 2021, but we open it up to 2020 losses.
Whatever those rules
Right.
change to.
But I don't think we have
if you wanna change
to
it to
throw the
2020
application
or-
away, is what I'm saying.
No, but what I'm
Whatever the
saying
attorneys
is,
have told you.
I think that the people that applied in the first round should be the first ones we look over before we open it up to everyone. That's just mine.
And I disagree because some people did not apply because they knew they did not have a loss in 2021.
Right.
And now we're saying that some people who applied who didn't have a loss in 2021, we're going to give them first shot at a loss in 2020. That's not fair to the people who are playing by the guidelines that were out there. I'm not saying don't open it up to those folks. I'm saying open it up to everyone.
Sure.
Again.
Okay.
And I think
Because that allows
Yeah.
more people to ask for money that they just didn't apply because they didn't have a loss in 2020.
And I agree with that. I think the good part of it though is that if you did fill out an application already, you don't have to
Less
do all the
steps.
work.
Right.
No,
You
it's
just got to
already
fix
out
the
there.
stuff that's
It's
there,
already
right?
out there, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Fix it.
I still
Those
think,
of us who have applied and did get denied, I got my denial, I did get my denial notification.
Yeah.
So I did get that. But it really wasn't very specific.
I agree with that.
Well, we can help you with that.
yes, and that's what this board needs to do. For the applicants that applied and were turned down for paperwork, we need to explain to you what you were missing.
And how are we gonna, what's the process gonna be for that? That's what I'm.
I think we need to figure
get
that
That's
out.
what we're trying to decide
We can't get
tonight.
to it because we can't seem to move on.
Okay.
I think we need to do that tonight.
So do we-
Tonight or the next
Okay.
rounds, yeah.
I'd
Tara?
like to say something. I've been doing RFPs, proposals, evaluation, scoring for 20 years. And typically, whenever you go after an RFP or whatever, you get a copy of what the criteria your evaluation scores are going to be. Because that's going to help you develop whatever, whether it be a grant, proposal, or anything. It tells you everything. I'll give you an example for NDOT. When we have to go after a certain RFP, like for community crossings or something, they will provide, here's a good example of an estimate. This is what it looks like. Here's one that does not qualify. I think we need to be more specific, and provide some, I tried to do it with the application guide with the boxes and the arrows and everything, but I think we need to go one step further.
It was a good first round that you did there. I mean, seriously, the work that you did there was a good first round.
Well, I mean,
But it's tough. It's tough.
Okay.
Unfortunately, and in this committee's defense, we are only able to talk about this stuff when we come here.
Yeah.
We don't get to talk aside from this. So we're picking up off the whim on how we're going to do this, and when we do it, it's in front of you. So bear with us. I'm going to try and figure out, I'll work with you guys on whatever. We can come up with some examples, go by.
I actually talked about this, and I won't mention the name, but there's a specific application, and I think we probably all saw it and went, wow.
Yeah.
Because it was filled out to the T's.
Yep.
It was just about perfect.
Yep.
I'm going to go back to that organization and ask them, can I release yours as an example? Because I think that would be great if they would allow us to do that. Even if we had to black mark some numbers or something that they didn't want everybody to see, but at least then you've got a perfect example of what one looks like.
There wasn't a bunch of superfluous information. They provided exactly what it was to make it very easy to evaluate whether they qualified, and that would be wonderful.
So if you have that example in front of it, you can kind of follow it and kind of mirror it, and it's a lot easier then, right?
And the other thing, we had a couple of handwritten things. Maybe we do a guide. If you're going to handwrite it, this is how we need it.
Yeah.
Because
you have to read it.
Well, yeah, but I still think, there's, like I said, people are not grant writers. They're not savvy with computers or programs
CPAs.
or CPAs or Excel or any of this other stuff. So.
I just want to make a comment real quick, and it's positive, I promise.
It's okay to
I'm
not.
always a positive person, but in our application, we were going to provide a free grant writing workshop for all the nonprofits and organizations in Perry County. So I just want to make a suggestion, whether you revisit our application and fund it or not, that if that's something that is a community need, clearly, I think that if you guys and all of us learn anything from that, this experience is that the lack of grant writing skills and other things. So I would just like to suggest that if whether it's through United Way of Perry County getting that funding or the county using this money to do that, please consider doing a grant writing workshop, however you want to do it, whoever you want to do it.
I'll be happy to be a part of that.
And that was something that I...
I'd be happy to be a part of
And
that.
I already mentioned to a couple of the board members at one point, I said, I'm willing to go to the library and get one of the little study rooms and just sit there.
Well, we were going to do a workshop.
Yeah, a workshop. I think a workshop is
intention.
great. Because to me, if you think you got it, it's nice to just bring it in, and we won't perfectly read it, but we'll glance through it and go, yeah, this is the right direction. You know what I'm saying? Before you submit it.
Ian?
Can I step up?
Absolutely.
Sure.
It'll be 2 minutes, I promise.
You can't speak 2 minutes.
It's because of that last name. I'm sorry.
No relation. No relation. I'll take him as a brother, but no relation.
So Ian,
okay.
and the next time come earlier, get on the agenda.
Well,
we are here just for, we're missing out on
gosh,
good things, and this meeting is kind of getting.
Hey, I know that's why I'm going to limit myself to 2 minutes or whatever. If I go past, somebody can stop me. All right, so on my way here, I'm watching this live stream. I told myself, hey, I'm not going to go tonight, that type of thing. I don't need to be there. Whatever. I was at Lagodi. We were doing a drone camp type thing, learning some stuff, so I can bring it back here, for everybody. Now, I didn't put in an application or anything like that, but somebody over there, Wendy over there, I was the proposal, Feed the Giant, all right? So first thing I just have to say is I want to correct something that was, Randy, you did say. So the first thing is that I am not in bioterrorism, okay? I think you said that about the health department, that I worked at the health department, I was in bioterrorism. Now, that would be cool, but I'm not. I'm in public health emergency preparedness coordinator. So what I do is basically go to the other counties, we have meetings monthly, we develop and make plans and then execute them as needed. Unfortunately, there was none for COVID, so, we got hit there. So that's what I do with the health department, all right? I just wanted to clear that up and make sure that the notes say that I'm not in bioterrorism, because that probably wouldn't be good if that came up later on, Okay, so the second thing is there's a lot of people in here that I have done work for, not only in marketing, but yes, and And after, thought, I was like, I'm just going to keep this short or whatever. But, Logan, my heart goes out to him completely. Now, like I said, I'm not here for applications or nothing like that. But let me tell you, this guy has saved my butt as far as a business goes during COVID, and I'm sure he's saved quite a few others. Now, that's as far as public goes, that's all I'm going to say. There's a lot of people in the crowd that I've done business with, as well as many of you on the board. Be the Giant does do marketing, all right? We do marketing, we do video, we do graphic design, we do websites. We do basically the whole gamut of things. We'll help you with whatever. And we're doing some new things now. So we're kind of into everything. It's just kind of how it is. So that's kind of how you have to be successful and diverse around Perry County. I think that's really it. Like I said, I don't want to take up your guys' time. I hit my dad's car or truck on the way over here because I was trying to get over here quick before Wendy's thing got off. So I'm going to go spend time with my fiance and her son now. So I appreciate you guys letting me talk. And I'm going to hand the microphone back to you.
Randy, I have a question.
Sure, Charlie.
Okay.
You're on the board.
Well, here's the thing, real quick. As far as we're talking about, reopening for the people that applied and was turned down, but we've had some that we've granted, like in this case, that's asked for additional money that we didn't. Is that still a viable?
If we're going to make a determination on how we're going, this is just me now.
Okay.
Phase 2, then we decide the parameters of that. Are we going to eliminate mental health? We funded it, I think, fairly well. I'm not sure. But it's been a bigger category that was funded. We're going to include it in the second round or not? Are we going back to small business? Are we going back to nonprofit? Are we going to open it up to governmental this time? Are we going to put more money in? Are we going to do any kind of water, sewer type expansion? We had requests for that in there. They're all valid. They're all valid. Now, the question is, how broad do we want to make this category? And how do we want to address those issues? Now, I don't have that answer. It's a board decision as to where we want to go from here. This one, I want to put to sleep and then start over. This is my opinion. Because I think any which way we try to change rules, it's going to affect people one way or the other, positive or negative. But as long as we don't eliminate them in the next round, and their applications are somewhat valid, they can then reapply under a new set of rules now that we've transferred the money into a governmental loss. That's just my thoughts on approaching it.
Can I start to draw that box?
Yeah.
Throw out some ideas of what those boundaries are?
We need.
You're on the board, we're actually talking about
Well, that's okay. So let's throw out a couple boundaries. The first boundary is that I think we maintain it with the 3 categories that we have, which means that government entities and infrastructure are still out, okay?
At this time.
Now, that doesn't mean that on the side, while we're doing all this, that we don't talk to these people that wanted to do infrastructure and do something for them, okay? But I think inside this application process, I think infrastructure's out, okay? And I think the same thing for government entities. But beyond that, I think the 3 categories stay the way they are. I think the money that's in them stays in them. So even mental health, it's still got the money there. I think you leave it there. There might be someone else that applies. Okay. I do believe that we try to keep the application as close as it is now, if not exactly the same, so that they don't have to do rework if they don't need to. I also think that we open it up for 2020 losses as well as 2021. The other thing is that inside there, if the project is more than their losses, I think we need to consider whether we want to give them the extra or not. Because at this point, I don't think we're bound to that loss category. That's my grayish that I'll throw out there. The other ones I think I'm pretty solid on that I would want to stick to. But that one's a grayish one that I would like to throw out there and discuss as well.
Okay, and then Greg, when you look back to a 2020 loss, if they've had other compensation through other grants, you're going to consider that?
I think that is considered. I think, like we talked about, capital gain is capital gain. It's a wash.
I'm
That's
talking
not,
about
but if you're talking about PPP loan
or a restaurant revital fund, or
I think we need to look at it. It should determine also if it's PPP or whatever. That's the payroll protection,
That's correct.
right?
Correct.
But if they have a loss due to other things that they need to fund other than payroll, I
Oh.
think that's a consideration.
Can I amend my boundaries? My boundaries is also, we talked about revenue. I would really like to look at it as a loss instead of a revenue.
In other words, net.
Net.
Yes, but you need to take into consideration what they've spent their money on. We had one applicant that had done a bunch of accelerated depreciation, and it made it look like he had a large loss, when in reality, he just wrote it off for tax purposes, clearly in his application. So,
And so that's why I think if we
That's why we
change
stuck,
the
and that's why we
rules,
stuck with revenue, was because of
We
that.
have to open it up to the entire public
Oh, absolutely.
as well.
I do agree
Absolutely.
with you.
I think that is
Your
absolutely.
explanation
Yeah.
helped us.
So-
But, so what we need to do as this board is to sit down and come up
So can
with
I
our
ask?
guidelines.
So can I follow up on the profit? We were on that one, so let's stick with it. So, what your thoughts are to stick with revenue instead of loss?
I'm not sure what my thoughts are. I'm just trying to get this some way where when we weigh these applications, somebody isn't if they come in and represent that they lost $200,000 and they went out and purchased a new backhoe and wrote it off in that year, that we'll weigh the fact that they bought a new backhoe and that's why they lost the money, versus a COVID-related. The final ruling was COVID-related losses, impacted by the COVID, things that happened because of the COVID. So a financial decision on revenue in that respect is a tax issue, not a COVID issue.
Yeah.
And if they do something in that respect, I'm not comfortable with funding that, because it's basically saying you took a tax advantage and now we're going to make you whole by giving you the money for your backhoe you just bought.
I understand your point.
So that's my concern. I want to fund what was truly a loss.
I'd like
But
to,
we can still open it up back to the original applicants to give them a chance to correct the mistakes or lack of information that they gave, and just extend the parameters to 2020, and as simple as that.
Yeah, I think the boundaries that I said are still the boundaries, right?
Well, I
You
don't think
repeated
we're
them. Those are the
reopening.
boundaries.
What we're doing is we're not
Yeah.
eliminating. We're telling them just reapply.
Right.
And this thing here, we're just putting it in.
Information, but add to it.
but there is something we did disqualify last week, and it was one that they were trying to keep the lights on and maintain the electricity, and they had their own board members were spending their personal money.
Yes, I
And
remember that
was-
one.
That, in
That
the
one
summer,
was-
That would be my organization.
yes,
Yes.
and to me, that should not be included. I mean, they did that out of the goodness of their heart to put in, and they're still hurting.
I think that goes in the
So-
same realm as the backhoe. Taking the backhoe as a full loss and getting that. I think this is the opposite of that.
The opposite.
You have Perry County citizens.
Right.
Right. This is just
You had a greater loss
Yeah.
than what was shown.
This is just the opposite of that. You have Perry Countyans stepping up to save that organization. That shouldn't be counted against you. I agree with that.
Okay, so let's look.
So would we count that as income?
Let's look at that situation.
I think we're going to talk about it. So give us
Okay.
a second, okay?
Let's look at that situation.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that one also. And it appeared their donation, their revenue was higher.
Yeah.
Okay? So then they made the qualification that their local members should put the money in to keep it afloat. Okay? But it didn't have qualifications on who put the money in the previous year or the year before that. It might have been the local membership also that did the same thing, and they do it year after year because it's an organization. There's many of them out here. They
Right.
reach in their pocket every year to keep the place afloat, keep the lights on,
Right.
and do it. So how are we going to address that issue when we have no way to know whether it's through a fundraiser or we have a bunch of people that's dedicated to the organization that's not willing to let it fall?
See, that,
So how do we do
that's
it?
where I'm talking about, giving them the opportunity to explain and correct their application, to make that explanation. Again, back to the backhoe scenario, okay, when we ask the question, okay, well, why did your income go down so much? And it's clear that it's because you took a depreciation. Well, we still have the ability to say, no, we don't like that. And, we're not bound 100% by rules. We're bound by by what makes common sense.
What we want to do is have the rules though, Tom. That way it becomes really clear to everyone who applies, who everyone here is that, and this is what happened to us when a lot of them were disavowed at the beginning because we had rules and we followed them. Charlie said multiple times, I hate to do this, but we've started doing it this way. So how can we let one in and not
That's
the
true.
other one in?
So when you set a standard, you have to follow
We have to
through
set
with it.
standards so people know what we want to follow, because we don't want to make it subjective. I like you, I don't like you,
Right,
I'll
yeah.
fund you, we want to have it very clear.
Well, that's why, I'm
Right,
being
and that-
objective, but objectively getting the explanation for, because everybody's situation is different. That organization is not gonna be the same as the next one or the next one. So is this a valid explanation for what we consider a discrepancy? That's,
So
And
I'm
our
gonna
challenges-
do the bookends. Okay, because that maybe helps conversation sometimes when you do the bookends. When you're looking at the situation and you're looking at, did they have buyback or did they get donations? Did they do this, right? You're all the way over here looking deep into their books, right? Way into their books. I don't think we want to go that far.
No, we don't.
Okay, now let me finish. The other side of the bookend is that on your tax form, line item this minus line item this is what we want. That's the number we want. That's the other side of that bookend, right? That's black and white. This is extremely muddy gray. So what we've got to decide is where in that middle are we, and that's a tough
right.
conversation.
It's because you
Very
have
tough.
multiple different organizations that approach these things in a different manner.
Yes.
And so that's the thing when we go to coming to a conclusion on how we're going to grade each application, we need to come to something where we don't turn it into a personality or a feeling, I feel good for this
Absolutely.
one, so that we can make a fair decision for all of them that apply. Now that's our challenge. Now, I don't
And
have that
agree with-
answer.
I agree with that.
I don't have that answer.
But I agree with that, but the only thing I was saying is the one that put something in their application and it's like, okay, well, I don't like that, give them the opportunity to explain that.
This,
And then
because
at
it does
that
go back
time-
to negative impact by COVID.
Right.
We have to actually look at that because that is one of the criteria in the final rule.
Yeah.
So
But
going,
I think we're free of those rules, so
Yes.
let's not stop ourselves from thinking outside that box. I don't disagree.
No,
Don't
no.
disagree,
And,
but I
and
just
then if that is the case, Greg,
we're
Yep.
a little more
then what
lax.
are going to be our parameters?
Agreed.
And see, that's where we have to establish them.
I mean, we have to have some parameters in order to judge everyone fairly.
Yes.
So you ask the question, what makes this applicant eligible? It has to be this, this, and this.
When I
We have to
did
fill in blank.
when I did my scoring, and again, it goes back to we were only able to talk when we were here. When I went home and I sat for hours and looked through these, and every single one of my I gave everybody money. Everybody money except for two people because they just didn't finish it. But the way I did it, I looked at it in a way of, okay, they're asking for 20,000, but they didn't supply this. That doesn't really count. I say 10,000 or, and I did it in a range depending on what they supplied. Because we're here to help the community, we're here to help Perry Countyans and to basically put a spur back into the economic community here.
And if it's unlimited funds, we could give
Everybody everything they want.
So can I offer up this?
We just asked that checkbox, do you accept something less than what you're requesting?
No. But what I want to go to is this. Okay, so I'm gonna shift gears completely. Okay, take profit, take loss, take revenue out of the picture. Okay, in our applications, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm just looking at the rubric. It looks like we actually asked them for what challenges and benefits are you going after? What plan of sustainability do you have? What are your plans for the current funds? We grouped all that under project overview. You did these much deeper than I did because I abstained from them. Were most of them based on a project, or were they actually just, we had a loss, give us money to make up?
There
There was a lot of.
Was it
lot
a mix
of
of
them
both?
had projects.
Mix of both.
It was a mix of
Right.
both.
Mix of both. I was hoping you'd say it was projects, because then basically we could go that route in the sense of what is the validity of the project.
I mean,
But if they're not all that based, then it makes it a little ruddier there too. So
Yeah.
I had to ask the question just to know where we
And
were.
the question you become, if you fill out an application, even though it's a bad one, you're gonna give them $500?
What's it?
Is
If
that
it's a
the way
bad project?
Okay, if it's, for filling out an application, are you gonna give them $500, even if it's a bad one?
No.
See, Tara started giving
That's why we have
partial
criteria.
things that they weren't asking, and I'm more of a black and white person. I wanna look at what they're gonna do with it, I wanna look at what their intentions are, and then I expect for them to perform.
Out money if somebody
To-
doesn't finish an application.
So, no, I'm just making a, sorry about that. But my point is, I want to have a certain specific thing that they're going to accomplish. One thing I had thought about, can we have grants, or can we have loans that are forgivable grants? And my thinking behind those are, if somebody's coming in and they're going to do a specific thing to put a roof on their building or whatever they're doing, that as long as they do it, they stay in business, their membership stays there, and everything's happy-go-lucky, we forgive it. But
So-
it holds them accountable to performance versus just handing them a check. Is that another
So
alternative you may want to
here's
consider?
the answer from the lawyer on that one, okay? And the answer from the lawyer on that one was directly out of this fund, it would be a very bad idea to give revolving loans. For the reason that when the 2026 comes around, that money has to be gone forever.
Right.
Forever.
Forever.
Okay.
So
That's
the only way you can do a revolving loan is, for instance, like I said before, is if the county would actually use that money on expenses that they have, and their general fund would increase enough to where they could create a revolving fund from that money. To me, that's a little leery, and I want more legal guidance on that one to make sure that it's A-okay, but it was a suggestion directly from the lawyer, from the state, from the bookkeeping part of that. I know. But that was the only option we had on that one. So a revolving loan to do it at any time soon, the answer is probably no. Probably no.
I want to go back to one thought when we first started this. I was under the impression that this money that went to organizations, this was also to provide insurance in the future in case the pandemic started again, such as an organization wants to put in a new filtration system in their building, so if the pandemic comes back, they're still able to operate. I thought that was one of the main things that this money was.
But no one asked for that.
No, there's categories.
Well, I think some of them had suggestions on what they were going to use the money was for the improvement of their facilities so they can stay open in case this ever happens again.
It was.
And we should look at that.
Absolutely, yeah. But again, it goes back to that criteria. Do we still have a profit loss criteria? Is that still
Something like that, I wouldn't think.
No.
Yeah, and that's my question. Is it either or? Is it both? How do we structure that? I do too.
Because a lot of these organizations shut down and weren't able to raise their funds to do this work. So now they need this money to do the work so they can stay open in case, God forbid, that the pandemic comes back.
It's a good point, but is that for round 2 or is that for the extension of round 1?
I think that it's all extension of round 1. That's just my
in
opinion.
my mindset, I'm thinking of this as round 2 with round 1. It's really a round
Phase
2.
Phase
Phase
two
2
of
of round 1.
I'm fine with that.
I think
it's a continuation. It's
think we
just
have to-
a word, okay?
It's just a play on words.
I'm only fine with that is if we change those rules like that, which I agree.
We open it up.
Open it up.
to
I'm
everyone.
fine.
Those
I'm
boundaries are
fine.
still in place.
Right.
I think the boundaries I don't think I've heard any challenges against the boundaries of 2020 losses. I don't think I've heard any challenges against the that we open it up completely again, right? I don't think I've heard any challenges around us actually using the application that we currently have until we find a flaw that it doesn't fit the new criteria. So those three things, I think, those boundaries, if we're all in agreement, we can kind of set those and move on from them. The key to me now is, what is that criteria of whether they are or are not eligible, and is that around profit loss, or is it around a project? And if it's both, that's fine too. But I think that's the topic that we need to focus on is what is that?
I think it's
What does
either
that look
or.
like? I think it's either or. Yeah, that's what I meant by both. That's
Yes,
what I meant by
yeah.
both. You could apply for, I have a loss,
Mhm.
and it's $5,000. Please give me money to make myself whole. Cool, we see that. Or I've got a project that is going to allow, I don't know, I don't even know what the projects were, so I'm going to throw out XYZ group is going to put in a small stadium or whatever so they can have more fundraising or whatever. We see the benefit of that to the county. Those things there to me is a project. So I think either or is fine. Does our current application lend itself to be able to do that for a nonprofit?
It can be.
We have to think about projects, but
Yeah.
we need to have.
Maybe you
all
need to
this
refine that so it's clear.
We need
Okay.
it, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and there is criteria in the application guide that we need to review,
Yeah.
because some of that's not going to apply now with the new
Yep.
final rule.
Oh, I think we can rewrite
But-
the application in the sense of like wordsmith it and take out some things that aren't there.
I would like to simplify it myself.
Yeah, but
I mean,
don't make it, don't throw the work that the people did out.
Right.
No,
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 no.
I'm saying,
no.
anything we do, we need to be able to transfer
Sure.
information.
If,
Yes.
We don't want them to have
Right.
to redo
Right.
everything.
That's not fair to
Not to
them.
reinvent the wheel.
I think your example is a good one though. Maybe pick one that has a project and one that has a loss.
Yeah.
As two examples that we could develop so they could use that for comparison purpose. This is one filled out correctly that had a business loss.
Yeah.
This is one that has a project. And then maybe that would help. I don't know.
But then like, I have a lot of sympathy for the situation back there, because that's what we did in my organization as well. When I look at it on paper, there's not a lot of loss there, but we did other things to make up for the money that we were not able to raise
That's true.
due to COVID. And I tried to put that in my application.
Mhm.
I explained that, one of our biggest fundraisers was a fundraiser we had a booth at the Heritage Fest that did not go off. It was canceled because of COVID. So what we did was we asked our membership to help alleviate that problem by making an extra donation to our organization. And that did help eat up the loss we incurred from not being able to have our fundraising event. So, if you leave it with this profit loss thing, mine probably isn't going to change that much. So I'm wondering if
But
maybe
we
a
just said
narrative-
we weren't.
What about
Okay.
Yeah.
We just
Can we
said,
expand
we just
the
agreed that we were
narratives?
gonna look at those
Expand
things like
the
you
Man in the
said.
back, can I pick on you?
In the blue shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
she's
well,
my example too.
my eyesight is so bad, I can't see who you are.
Yeah.
Michelle.
It's Michelle. Okay. Okay, so Michelle, and I'm picking on her because I kind of know her project. I kind of know, I think I know yours a little bit, okay? So I'm picking on you for that reason. So you basically didn't have a loss because they stepped up, they donated, they took care of it.
We did not end up doing like a fundraiser drive
Yeah.
that year. We weren't able to rent the building.
Right.
Building's deteriorating.
But
the members did step up and keep the lights more on.
Yeah, so you basically didn't have a loss because of that, but okay, so that's a thing, right? Okay. Now, but because of that, inside yours, you also have a project, right?
Correct.
Which is putting a roof on, is that
We
correct?
need a roof terribly bad.
Okay, so to me, we're not judging her on a profit loss anymore. We're judging her on the project.
Project.
And the same would be for you, man, if you came out even on the loss, but you had a project like a food truck or something that would help your fundraising capabilities or something like that. That would switch you over to being eligible for that project. You see what I'm saying? Does that
And
make
we
sense?
Yes.
And we'd want you to explain how that
Right, the
food
narrative.
truck is going to work within your organization, allow you to continue, to allow you to be a sustainable organization so
Yep.
that in the event COVID or another issue like this arrives at another time, you can roll the truck out, you can serve food out here, you can do all these kind of things. that's the kind of information that we're looking for. So we say, this makes sense. They've thought through the process on how they're going to be there tomorrow. Because what we want is everybody to be there tomorrow. We don't want to lose organizations, any organization in the county here. That's by all means.
And I picked on you, I'm sorry. What was your last name?
Michelle.
Michelle, Peter? Okay, I think we probably know each other. So, okay. I'm so blind.
Everybody should know me.
I am so blind your face is still a blur. So just so you know.
I just think one of the main things we need to look at are the narratives.
Yes.
That we need to open up that narrative box for you to type in, like on your projects, like Randy said.
Yeah.
I think
That's what, like, we didn't collect our memberships that year. We didn't have, the building wasn't open for 15 months.
Is it a simple
So that was
question,
kind of
do you
the-
have a loss?
I
Yeah.
didn't know
I think that's it.
Exactly.
I just want to make one statement on this first round. I think if you guys want to remember back, we first wanted to make people whole who had a loss, knowing we were going to have all this other money on the other side, plus now we've got more to do for things like projects. And that's where we are now. That's where we are now. Not that we were never awarding money for that, but the first priority was to make people whole who could show they had a loss for that little time frame that was specified in the regulations, and we've done that now. Now let's move on and get people with 2020 losses and people with great projects that we wanted to fund, that we didn't. Not because we didn't think they were good projects.
Right.
We want to do that now.
And I think in the application, it's as simple as having a couple check boxes.
Right.
This application is for losses.
And ours was thrown out because we didn't show a loss.
Correct.
Correct.
Instead of
Because we wanted to fund those
which
first.
I applaud you and your organization
Right.
for that. It's just that the criteria were the criteria. So-
See, and the problem comes up to us is how we slice that, whether it's a group of 10 that reached in their pocket and kept it afloat, versus the fact that they normally rent the building out and make that revenue.
Right.
And I don't know how we.
Easy though, she just puts a project.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Now,
have.
project will not
loss.
impact the
That would
loss. It would be a project.
So can I pick on one more? I'm going to pick on him behind you now. So can I pick on you, Logan?
He's been picked on enough.
So another example of that is this guy right here. There's no way in heck he qualifies for a loss because he didn't have a 2019 and he's not ever going to have. He can't go back in time. But I'm sure he has projects. I'm sure he has things that he could show that are going to make this grow or make it available to more people or whatever. That opens it up to you as well then.
And do you understand that we first wanted to fund those people who had losses, knowing they're going to have all this extra money? Now we're going to move forward to that.
I understand. I very respectfully, and one thing I wish I would have said at the beginning was I thank you for all of your time and commitment into this. I have a lot of respect. I've been to many of the meetings and know how seriously you guys are taking this. But I was going to say, for us specifically, and on Holden, I can't speak to other businesses. What I was speaking to in the beginning was that I feel like I disagree with your statement, and that I felt that we were narrowing in what was supposed to be a very exceptional industry that did demonstrate a loss. It was just criteria. It was the way that
It's the
criteria
math.
was
Yeah.
applied. So it wasn't. It's a tough pill to swallow, knowing that we are in that second. You know, we aren't seen as someone that had that loss. Our losses were profound. They just didn't show up in terms of gross revenue. But if you go into literally the Federal Register, it talks about revenue or profits.
But I think it boils down to even something even more minute than that. What it boils down to is the math didn't work because we didn't have a number to compare to. And I understand how unfair that is to start being a business that started in the wrong time. And trust me, it was, let me rephrase it. It was seen. Your loss was seen.
Yes.
But we had to follow, they had to follow and I had to follow what that math was. But now I want, like we said, we want to open that up.
And Logan, we are not, just because it says in the final rule we can do these things, this first round just didn't address that. See, yeah, we are not building water lines, which we're allowed to build water lines. We're allowed to do all kinds of things, but we were trying to keep it focused.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. So when you refer to a section of that and say, well, you could have done it. Yeah, we could have. We could have went out
But we
here.
decided as a group not to.
And you know
That
what,
we
this,
would do it later.
this
Well,
goes
and
one
it's-
step
now.
further.
And-
So this is the
federal.
biggest issue, is later, the longer that goes on, the better the likelihood is that I won't be able to stand here and make the case for that money.
Right.
And it goes one step further, because when you lost out, restaurants lost out, because you weren't bringing in the tourists, and because you couldn't. So that caused a ripple effect.
Domino. Yeah.
It really did, with
Domino.
what he lost.
And I think the flip side of that is, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you invest in what we do, the model of what we do is that it's gonna trickle down right back into the businesses that we're gonna
Right.
continue to work with to serve
Absolutely.
our passengers and all of that. So
I
it's
don't-
gonna have an amplifying effect working through it. I just wanna make sure that, and I appreciate you picking on me for this very reason.
Yeah.
We fit in this very, 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 very narrow set of circumstances that have caused this to fly by us every time. I just want to make sure that this does not happen again.
Right.
I have a concern with, the timing, but I respect the process. I understand what you guys are doing. I appreciate the ability to be up here and speak.
I just didn't want you or anybody that's in here to go away thinking they weren't seen. And I know that you had that feeling in your heart. So I wanted to make, that's why I picked on you in specifically, and the lady back there too. I know that group just stepping up, that's why I wanted to make sure you're not invisible to us.
There was no one,
And,
there was no one on this board whom I tried to reach out to that didn't make themselves available. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So, moving forward,
Yep.
I mean, is our next step to try to draw up, or each one of us come up with some new ideas, parameters or something?
I
get back
think we
in
need
it?
to have a working session, quite
And-
honestly. If we need
But
to
it's
get
still
this
gonna be
right,
public.
and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Well,
And-
I suggest that you split off into a group of 3 and do a work
Not make it
session.
quorum.
And not
Okay,
make it-
Yeah.
that's fine with me. I think that works a lot better.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And if you're okay with it, I think I would do one that does small business, and I would do one that does nonprofit, so that you
each
get
group.
ideas from both groups, and it may end so.
Okay.
So
we split
what I
you two up.
what I would do is, let's say there's 6 of us here, right?
Okay.
So us 3 take small business.
Aaron's.
No,
Well, I know,
Aaron-
I'm just taking the 6 that are here, but we got us 3 that are gonna do small business, and you 3 that are gonna do nonprofit.
Nonprofit. And then
When you
Aaron-
get done with yours and we get done with ours, we'll swap them and look at them with fresh set of eyes. You
Okay.
see what I'm saying?
And Aaron can be involved in,
Tell him that.
We'd rather do small business.
Oh, I wasn't even choosing,
Well,
I wasn't even choosing teams, I was just giving an example.
My question is, so you're gonna get together as
right
a
away.
group of 3?
Yep.
And then we're not gonna be public?
No.
Okay.
But we'll
Then
bring it
we're
all back.
Then we're going to assemble some general ideas of to how we're going to formulate this next process. Then we'll have a work session where we hash these things out to
Right.
come to a
I think it's just
conclusion,
a meeting.
hopefully.
Well,
Well,
that will be open to the public.
That
It's a
would be
meeting.
open.
There is no
to-
such thing as a work session.
No.
Has to be open.
Right.
Are
When
we
we
going
meet
to
as a group,
solicit any kind of public comment, or are we going to do it privately? For any of their ideas, whether it's small business, nonprofit, where one of these folks would like to share it, are we gonna do it public, or should they just reach out to one of the members to share their thoughts?
Could we send out just a simple survey to each group?
I'd rather verbally talk to them myself,
I
because
would too.
sometimes if they say, I had problems,
I would
I
too.
want a little more than
Yeah.
that, so they can explain to me more exactly what happened. Because I think that a lot of times, I'm thinking in another direction, I always use this as visualization. There's a red ball in the front yard. I'm thinking it's a red golf ball, Charlie thinks it's a big red ball from the beach. They're both red balls.
Right.
We're thinking in 2 different
different
directions.
directions.
But if I can ask you, Charlie, did you hit it with your golf club? You'd say, no, I'm on the beach. My golf club is up in the room. We'll get to the
Right.
answer we want by asking a question.
Yep.
And that's where I'd rather verbally interact with them. Whether we do it public or whether we do it private, one of the group you.
Yeah.
I'm okay with
Well,
either way, whatever the group.
The only
small
the only advantage of a small group is
Keeps us-
it's versatile, it's faster.
Faster.
Right.
Faster.
Everything still becomes public because you have to bring it back here to vote it in. It's going to come back here.
Okay,
That's
so.
why when we come back, I'd like to have a regular meeting. because
Right.
You have to.
Bringing it back.
Have to.
We need to be able to say,
Right.
what if you bring yours back and we say, we think it's great and there's no objections, why can't we vote on it right then and put it in
Move
place?
forward.
That's probably not gonna happen, but.
No, I mean.
With this
there's-
group, we have opinions.
But I think we need to share the documentation between
Back and forth.
the groups so that we all know kind of the direction.
Okay, now, we're not gonna be in any violation by the sharing the information back and
That's the
forth.
only
That's
question.
No, you
question.
can share, the way ODL works is it is perfectly fine to share documents, information, data that's collected. Like today, I sent out an email to everyone about the dashboard that I looked at, and I said, hey, these are some things on the dashboard information-wise. Perfectly okay with ODL. What goes wrong is if Charlie then goes, oh, I think that's a great idea, I'm on a motion to...
No, we can't do that.
Can't do
Yeah,
that.
Okay.
No discussions, no voting. But
Right.
as long as you're just passing information, there is no ODL violation at that point, so.
I guess
Okay,
the
I'm fine
answer
with
to
that.
your question.
Correct?
It would be both.
Well, yeah, if they want.
For the small group, you know, somebody you just want to meet somebody on the street or somebody wants to call you.
However we can
And then
get
when we
information.
the work session together where it's a public meeting, then that's when people, so we give two different opportunities.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So do you want to do, so in other words,
Put the
we
names
meet a
out.
small group, we try to set some parameters, then we have then we share it among the group.
Yep.
Then we have a work session that allows the public to come and speak while and if and when we're kind of making these decisions. And then that night, would we make a decision or would we say, we have a meeting to actually make I would assume after we hash it out, we'd want a written document that all of us could review and then approve rather than having any misinterpretation by verbal.
My thing is that if we don't have that pause and have it written in solid document, that we're
Right.
going to miss something.
Right.
So I think
I agree.
the word work session I hate because it's a meeting regardless.
Right.
But I think you're right. It will be two separate meetings. It will be one that you do create it. There will be a meeting in which you create it, and there'll be a meeting in which you vote on it.
Yeah, and if it's. you
Rapid
call it a
session,
work
though.
session, instead of a meeting, you are not allowed to vote on anything. So
yeah.
I want everybody to be clear with that. A work session's fine with me, but we cannot make any motions or votes.
Let's
on a
just
work
keep them
session.
No, you cannot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You
let's
cannot
just
vote.
keep them meetings.
Right.
Okay, then we're covered.
Because if we come to an obvious consensus, there's no need in waiting till the next meeting.
Well, I think there is to see it in its
writing?
form.
I think we
it
need to
needs be
reduce
in
it
its
to
form.
writing and then have
Yeah.
everybody
Okay.
read through
Okay.
that to make sure that we're
All
all
right.
thinking.
Okay,
Doesn't mean it can't be 2 days later,
Right.
right?
Whatever.
And 5 minutes, in the meeting. But, and I like the idea of meetings versus work sessions again, because really it's a meeting, because if we're talking about changing this or changing that, whether we take a vote or not, we are coming to a consensus.
Yeah, that's my lingo, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
When's the last day of voting out there so that May the 2nd?
Commissioner meeting that in.
Your meeting's
I'm out of town on the 4th.
So May the 2nd, May the 3rd on the county facilities back available. So
May 30, it's election day.
this election day is
May
closed.
4th then.
I can't make 4th.
What about May 5th?
See,
Well, this is going to be the meeting. This is not going to be the group.
Exactly.
Right. The
We're gonna
groups are
have
going to meet
between
before
the
then.
21st and that day, and we're going to do our homework.
I can't
We'll
make
have
the 5th.
suggestions.
What time what time are we talking about?
I mean,
And how long?
I would
Fifth, we can-
I would love to be on one of the work,
gonna be a
small
meeting.
groups, or one of the subcommittee groups. The 25th or the 29th is probably the earliest that I can meet. 25th is next Monday. I have no problem meeting next Monday on this.
Tara?
well, I mean, I'm thinking, let's set the actual meeting.
Okay, let's do the meeting, then
And
the
then in the
subcommittees
interim-
can
I have-
agree.
You guys
Okay,
can
I
get
have
together and
I have
decide
worse
Right.
I have worse news then. The entire month of May I am out of town and possibly out of country. So
Okay,
So-
but we'll still go, let's go ahead and set a date, okay?
So the 25th, is that a date?
No,
No, that's with the
That's
group.
with maybe the groups,
Don't
okay?
wait for me for that meeting.
Okay, all
May,
right,
we're
the
gonna
meeting.
have a meeting in May to discuss with public input as to what we're proposing on this next group of applications. So-
Okay.
And what, if I'm
the
understanding
fifth look
correctly,
like?
we're going to use the buckets already established, those dollar amounts.
Right.
Is what we're putting in play. Okay.
Okay, what's May 5th like for everybody?
I'm good on May 5th.
Tom
Huh?
says it's Cinco de Mayo. He'll be drinking.
Well,
I'm with Tom.
put it in a sack and bring it.
I'm not available that day.
Okay. That's a Friday. I don't care, I can do it.
Friday morning?
Well, I don't know. Is it a problem to meet in the morning? Is that not a problem? I mean,
There's so much still work.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. We don't want to have a
that's
meeting
what-
at a time that's
Okay.
inconvenient for the public.
What about, you said you couldn't do the 4th.
Why don't we do that, the commissioner,
On what day?
The 2nd?
No.
Yeah, I'd rather,
Bad idea. Bad idea.
I don't blame
You
you.
can't do,
We kind of like to see if you can even.
okay, then we're going to the next week. What about the 9th, Tom? Okay. Any day that week, Sherry?
From what I have on this calendar, it should be fine.
What day?
The rest of the days are fine, just not.
Okay.
Anything after
Tara.
the 9th would be the 10th.
On what, the 10th?
I'm good.
10th.
We actually, the courthouse is open to 6 o'clock, May the 9th and the 10th, both of the tax deadline.
Okay, then Wednesday, the 11th.
Not available.
What?
I'm not available.
Thursday, the 12th.
Can we do any of this on Teams? We can't do it.
Can we, what?
We can't do anything on Teams or anything, can we?
Actually, we can do a Zoom meeting.
That's what I was thinking.
Thursday, the 12th.
Thursday, the 12th. You're going to be gone,
I'm out all
Tara.
month.
You can go back to May the 10th if that works. If you can do
I
that.
can't.
You can't?
I can't.
12th.
The 12th.
12th.
We need to check Aaron.
Well, we can have a majority.
Okay.
We're going to go 5 p.m.?
I could do 4 if it helps them,
4.
because they're at the courthouse.
It's just, in my case, I live 20 miles out, and when you have this late, it's not comfortable for me to drive home.
Me too, sister.
Okay, Randy, you want to announce that date to the public?
Yeah, we're going to meet May the 12th at 4 p.m. and hopefully have some ideas to hash out on what we'll do on the next round. At the county courthouse, because voting will be over. And it will be on the calendar, Teresa said, tomorrow. That's where you need to check.
We need to clarify.
It's on the home page, is it not, Teresa?
PerryCounty.gov.
Thank you.
IN.gov.
I'm sorry. PerryCounty.in.
Okay.
We need to clarify subgroups and who's in them. and
Okay.
what they're taken care of.
Tara, Greg, and myself, we're going to do nonprofit since you guys want to do small business.
Okay, we're putting Aaron.
Aaron said the 12th is good.
Okay.
Putting Aaron to the side.
Where do you
I
want?
think Aaron would enjoy a respite for Ready. She's got her hands full with Ready.
Okay, are we including mental health in this?
We left all 3 categories, I thought.
Yeah, but I think once you do nonprofit, mental health kind of falls apart, doesn't it? 'Cause
Well, that was a separate.
I know, but if you look at the applications, they would be pretty darn close to one
Yeah.
another.
I don't think we have any.
Well, if we open it up.
We're opening it up.
Yeah,
Why
but
don't
we're
we
going to
let-
open it
Why
up.
don't we let Aaron look at mental health?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's fine.
It's probably the
Okay.
least you're gonna have to change anyway. So that's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
But I also know
Okay.
that she's got her hands full.
Clarification, where is Ms. Emerson going to be when you have meetings?
Mental
She's gonna be
health.
here.
I'm sorry. Whenever you're doing nonprofit, whenever you are doing business?
Small business.
Okay, and Ms. Emerson will be on which project?
Either nonprofit or mental health, we don't know yet.
Okay.
let her choose which one she wants. I don't think they'll matter. It don't
Or
matter.
We'll work it around so there's no conflicts.
That would be great.
Okay,
Be fair and professional.
all right, that's fine.
All right.
Anything else we have?
That's the
Randy?
man.
Okay, so we got who's going into little subgroups.
Right, and we'll
We're gonna
work
meet-
among ourselves
We're
to
going to
get this taken over.
assemble some rough ideas,
Yes.
share them among the group, and then we'll meet for a discussion and a path forward on the 12th. at
Do
the
you
courthouse.
guys, Randy, do you guys want like examples of like what a good budget is and what a good P&L is? Or
At some point,
like make it generic, just kind of.
at some point, I think it'd be advantageous to have, here's a project and here's how you fill it out.
Mhm.
Joe's filling station wants to do this, and go through the process and make, if you can download an example, just do it and make up the required documentation so somebody can click on it and say,
It's mainly the documentation.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
make it up.
Joe Blow, yeah.
and then they can always refer back to how that was approached so they know what we're looking for.
Okay.
So my last suggestion is that we need to make a motion on the ones that we approve to send them to council.
That's true. The question becomes is we need to address the contracts and the requirements that we're going to have next
Monitoring,
time.
reporting.
Who is going to take on that?
I found samples of that stuff.
But who is
Yeah,
going
but
to
when
administer?
the
But I
attorneys,
think it's since it's a contract, it has to go through the
the
commissioners.
commissioners,
Yes.
because
Okay,
they're
so
over
then-
policy.
Are the commissioners on board with their council to
Create it.
supervise and handle all this? If we can go in and make the recommendation. If we're done with that, I'm okay with that. They'll go.
I think the subrecipient contract is not going to be ready, but I don't find any reason why we can't send it to the council and get that process going, and then we'll come up with the contract before the check is written. Is
What
basically.
would the council have to do?
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're talking about the contract between, to make sure they're in compliance with this money. Yes.
Okay, this is what the county attorney suggested to me, or suggested when we talked to him, Teresa and I did. Whatever you guys decide as far as what you're giving out here to the grants, because it looks like it's gonna be in intervals right now, because we've
Right.
got some you already awarded. The president or someone needs to come to the commissioners, more or less just kind of present what you're giving out, what it was for, or who to, and then give them the dollar amount, because they need to submit an additional to the council.
An appropriation.
Appropriation.
Additional appropriation request to the council, so I can get it on to advertise to the council.
Right. Now, the question then becomes, is the administration of this contract. Who's going to supervise it, get the people to sign it? Is that a commissioner's thing?
I truly believe that this group needs to talk about who's going to maintain that, because I think we're going to have to get someone. I don't think.
Hire somebody?
I believe we're going to have to hire someone.
What about the community foundations? You are already in agreement with them.
Possible.
And maybe extend that.
Possible.
And they can be the
Right.
administrator.
See, at some point.
Exactly.
we
That's what I'm
talked about
saying.
this as
We need
having
to
a
get the
contract when we
subrecipients
provide the
contract
signs
and all
that
that
they're going
lined
to
out anyway.
spend them
I'm
in
gonna resend
compliance.
that
Before we hire
contract.
someone,
Example.
let me ask
You do?
He might just.
I think I've
I
got
sent it to
enough.
Chris.
Is there, so you're saying there's gonna be things in the contract that need to be monitored, or?
Well, there's a reporting. Now, I don't know, have you eliminated the reporting?
I do. I read them.
Huh?
No.
I read your emails.
Once you go all government, so you've got rid of it?
Is that correct, Rick?
Great.
The applicants that we funded, they don't have
So
any
then all we have
reporting
to do-
duties, do they?
All they have to do is
Any
like,
longer?
it has
It's
to be
just
spent
the
within
county
the time frame,
reporting.
and they've got to
I
agree to
wanna
do that.
verify
Whatever
that.
the other stipulations are, so that they are
I'm pretty
aware
sure
of
that's
it,
what.
and they understand when they accept this money that they're, you know.
I have only some recipients right now, which they call transfers.
The only subrecipients we have are the 3 mental health. All the other ones are losses. There really isn't. Based on the conversation with the lawyer, though, those grants for losses, pure losses, are relatively simple. There is hardly any auditing process whatsoever.
And that's how those need to be written, because
that's what we did.
But
Okay.
the other three, you have to.
The other three are sub-recipients. We do have to have contracts, we have to make sure they know what their guidelines are, all that good stuff.
So do we need to have some statement that I hereby certify that I've lost this, and the documents I provided this group are legitimate?
They already
all this
did.
kind of thing?
It was at the bottom of the
Yeah, it was in the
application.
bottom of the
We
application.
include that, get them to sign, okay.
Yeah, that's
Just
what
so
we
we're
have
clear.
to have, they have to make sure they have all their documents in place, so if an audit happens, so
They're there.
they're audited, it doesn't go back on them and come back onto the county.
Yes.
Okay, all
For
right.
the State Board of Accounting, I assume they'll look at this.
State Board of Accounting is going to look at this.
Oh, yeah. With a fine tooth comb.
They are going to
If they don't agree with some of it.
Okay, so what we're doing.
And rightfully so.
Okay,
So right now, what you need is Greg's gonna put together a list out of what you've got as far
Oh,
as what
yes,
to give away
yes,
to
yes.
each individual.
Yes.
In some kind of a format, and I'll take it to the next commissioners meeting.
Okay.
And I'll present it, that this is what the committee has said we're gonna disperse, asking for you to approve it. Okay, if there's any questions, we'll go through it. And then we're done. Tom's gonna ask Chris to make sure legally we're on board with everything we need to do.
Plus who he recommends to administer it.
Right.
We would want some
And
ideas on who
that's
to
gonna be a
administer it.
commissioner's deal
right.
with you guys and the attorney to work that out. So, and then we're done with it.
So my process is if you get it to the commissioners at their first May meeting, we can still get it on for the May council.
Right.
Because they'll sign the additional appropriation request. I can get it on to advertising, get it to the council in May, where hopefully we can, if the timing's right, we should be able to issue them out in June, or if not June, it will be the 1st of July.
Right.
That's
All
when
right.
we don't go any further.
Also, the paperwork for them to become a vendor, do we still
I'm
need
gonna
that?
get with Susan to figure out what all we need, but if we have their W-9s, that's pretty well maybe all we're gonna need.
Okay,
So as long as I have a copy of their W-9s, that might be, because that's gonna have their name, address, and things that we need as far as setting up our vendor.
okay.
So,
To clarify only one thing, when it comes to administering it, this group still needs to decide who's going to administer it and that.
Right.
Because that money's going to come from this pocket of money.
Right out of the ARP fund.
So I just wanted to clarify that. The commissioners may come with some advice on here's a couple that could do it, but this
Recommendations.
group needs to decide who's going to do it. Okay?
Okay, I'm fine with that.
you write the checks.
Unless we can do it internally.
Yeah, if there's a,
Right, if the attorney
Okay.
says it can be done internally,
I'll
we'll do
talk-
that.
I'll talk to Chris.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
I'll make a motion
anything
to
else?
adjourn.
You're making a motion, what?
To adjourn.
Yes, second.
Oh, wait.
Hold up.
Wait.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could I just have a clarification? If an organization was awarded for a 2021 loss, can they come back now and apply for a 2020 loss?
According to the
Yes.
current boundaries we discussed,
Yes.
Yes.
So
Now-
they'll just do a new application for the 2020.
it may be the same application resubmitted, but if you want to change it or whatever, then yes. But
We just won't refund additionally for the same loss we've already funded.
Okay.
So then if it's a project versus a loss, do they have to do a separate application or can it be combined into one if they have both?
Well, for instance, the lady back there, I think she probably gave us all the information on the project, probably close to it, but we're working on those applications, we'll see what they look like at the end. But yeah, we're hoping you can reuse a lot of your information, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys for being
All
patient.
those in favor?
Who seconded it?
Tara, Sherry,
Oh,
Yeah.
Aye.
Everyone said aye.
I gotta get home. I gotta go to court.